together on a Friday night.
It should be.
You're here as well, mate.
So this is Dr. Guy Ledziner.
What a stupid name!
That would make you angry, having to say that every day on the phone. No, it's Ledziner. Vagina? No, L-E-S-S.
That's why he's so
Ziner. Yeah, exactly.
It says that experiencing wrath or rage can be an important driver, for success in the modern world, as it pushes us to clear any threats and achieve our goals. Yeah, but if you're doing it with with your tie tied around your head and, holding an office chair as a battering ram, surely it's not going to make you more successful.
Yeah, I think it's successful in a sort of long-term Trump grudge style, where you're like, right, I'm going to be successful to get back to these people, but in a kind of punching your boss kind of way, frowned upon.
Well, he does say that it's all about moderation, but there's an interesting experiment they talk about where they give some people different puzzles, and if they're angry, they're actually more determined to see it through.
That's interesting.
So there might well be something to it, if it gets your... I think he's arguing that it's all about testosterone.
Yeah.
I like Nick's theory of harbouring grudges and just holding on to that bitterness.
Oh, mate, that's what keeps me going. Every single day. Very quickly then, Nick, I suspect you might actually agree with this Hollywood actor.
Yes, it's Ray Fiennes says Trump's remarkable gift helped him win the US election. And he admits, Fiennes, that it was a gift for storytelling, whereas the other side had no good story. And that's completely true. Although they then make the same mistake that the other side made by calling Trump a racist and a fascist in the piece. And you think, guys, have you not learned? Especially a guy that played Kinsey, who was a far worse person than Trump will ever be. Anyway. I thought I was going to leave Leo some time to say something, but...
Well, yeah, I think Trump won because he's...
No, he didn't leave me any time. The show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Times, UK economy takes a hit after Labour tax increases. The Telegraph, Trump threatens sanctions on ICC. The Daily Mail, private sector shrinks after Labour budget. Daily Mirror, King to tour India. iWeekend, weight loss jab hostile cases surge. And the Daily Star, 72 million for a man in a hat to sit in a chair. That is it for tonight's show. Thank you very much to my guests, Leo and Nick. Nick and I will be back here tomorrow night at 11 p.m, joined by Lewis Schaefer, because we must have done something to upset our bosses. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Bert arrives during the next 24 hours, bringing with it a multitude of hazards, from heavy snow to strong winds and increasingly heavy rain for many as well. Here comes Storm Bert from the Atlantic, carrying mild, wet and windy weather, but also bumping into the cold air that is resident across the UK. And that means that by midnight, the rain is reaching Northern Ireland, but it's turning to snow for many. And likewise, mid to North Wales will see some snow predominantly over the hills. Quickly, though, the mild air arrives and turns that back to rain by dawn, and it will be heavy rain for Wales, Northern Ireland and the southwest, accompanied by increasing winds, a risk of gales in places. So a wet and windy start to Saturday for many in southern England and South Wales. Very mild temperatures at 12 or 13 Celsius first thing, likewise for Northern Ireland. But for Northern England, as well as parts of Scotland, we're going to see a longer period of snow, 2 to 4 hours through Saturday morning, and that snow is going to be heavy. It's going to be accumulating thick and fast, up to 10 centimetres at lower levels, for example the Vale of York through the central belt as well, 20 to 40 centimetres over hills, accompanied by gales. That's going to lead to blizzards over the hills of Northern England and Scotland, as well as power line accretion, and so risk to power interruptions and risk of really treacherous travelling conditions. But by the middle of the afternoon, much milder air arrives, turning that snow back to rain and resulting in a rapid thaw with the risk of flooding in places. The rain continues to build up across many western and southern parts of the UK at first on Sunday. More than 100 millimetres possible for Dartmoor, the mountains of South Wales, and it's a windy day for many on Sunday as well, with further gales at the south coast as well as the far northwest. Much quieter weather arrives for the start of next week.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. Stock up on food and water as Storm Bert sweeps across the UK.
That's as the police warn against road travel in many parts of the country.
Well, there's a rare red weather warning issued in Ireland. Here's what to expect throughout the day.
Heavy snow, heavy rain, strong winds. Storm Bert is here and it's causing different problems across different parts of the UK. There are a number of Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for all the details.
And budget blues, the impact of Labour's tax rise is evident as new figures reveal the economy stagnating and business losing confidence in the government.
Farmers, as you know, have been out in force this week across the United Kingdom to protest changes to inheritance tax. But have the government listened? we'll be recapping what's been a very busy week for our farmers.
And that's as Australia rushes through a bill to ban social media for under 16s. We're asking whether we should be following suit with our own ban in the UK.
And musicals, love them or loathe them, with Wicked heading to cinemas this weekend. We're debating a very divisive question.
Good morning, Ruben. Amorim speaks for the first time as Manchester United manager, insisting he's the man to return the club to its former glory. Elsewhere in Manchester, Pep Guardiola pledges to stay at City even if they're relegated. And in the autumn internationals, we'll look ahead to England v Japan at Twickenham.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So we're talking musicals a little bit later on. Do you love them or loathe them? It's an age-old question, apparently.
Since the dawn of time, obviously.
Dawn of time, people have debated whether they like musicals or not. However, you're not a fan, are you, Dawn?
I'm not a fan. I liked Grease. Remember Grease? John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John back in 1978? I liked that. Sang along to that one.
Because you're of an age.
Not since.
Not since.
No.
How about you, Aidan?
I don't mind them. I remember going on a date once to see, I think it was Miss Saigon.
Well, that's every weekend.
Miss Saigon about 1997. And, you know, it was a bad experience because I'm all about the personality and all about the conversation, and it stifled that.
Of course.
And I regret it. I regret it. Yeah, I know. I couldn't talk over the music, unfortunately.
Right.
So, yeah, bad memories, but not a bad thing. I certainly don't loathe them.
No, you see, I don't like the idea of musicals, and yet I've been to a few and quite enjoyed them.
What's your favourite, Dawn?
Mary Poppins, I think.
Why am I not surprised?
Weirdly. No, someone
Not
said...
weird.
Someone said... Actually said the theatre and said, let's go and see... Do you want to go and see Mary Poppins? I was like, oh, all right, I'll go. And actually, it was really good. It was really good. You came out wanting to sing the songs, all the rest of it. But I did see Miss Saigon, actually.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Did you?
Hated it. I saw Chicago on Broadway.
Oh, darling.
Broadway. Left in the interval.
Oh.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Hated it.
Do we fancy a bit of Wicked, is the question.
Well, I've not seen... I don't know anything about it. I've not seen it.
It's the Wizard of Oz, basically.
Well,
it's the
yeah.
witches. That's it. I'm explaining it because husband didn't even realise that. He goes, oh, it's about the Wizard of Oz. It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
no, it doesn't light my fire.
No. Is that from a musical as well? Are we going to sing at one
Lulu,
point?
isn't it?
Are we going to sing at one point this morning?
So I don't know, but then I didn't think I would like... what's that Hugh Jackman one?
Don't know.
Greatest Showman.
Greatest Showman.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't think I'd like that one. Went to the pictures and actually loved it.
It was quite
loved
good.
It.
Mind you, he did look quite good in a top hat, didn't he?
Well, it was just the music. The music was sensational.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. I don't like the idea of it, but actually when it happens, sometimes they're all right.
I didn't go and see the new Joker movie because it was a musical.
Oh, really?
I love the first Joker, but the second one was a musical. And I didn't go and see it because of that.
No, it's a bit of a turn-off. Anyway, let us know what you think of that one, gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, you might want to be going out at all this weekend because Storm Bert is on the way. Heavy rain, strong winds and disruptive snow to parts of the UK.
Storm Bert, I'm sorry, Storm Brutus, is expected... Call it a decent name. Bert is a muppet, it's not scary. If we're saying people to stay indoors, right, no one's going to be scared of anything called Bert.
I don't know. It's very good folk out there called Bert. If you were called Bert...
Bert's a lovely name, but it's just not scary, is it?
Is it meant to be scary?
Yeah, it's a storm. We're saying, Any case, it's expected to hit this morning with a rare red warning, which are scary, issued for Ireland, and the Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings across the UK.
Let's talk to weather journalist Nathan Rao, who's here. Are you scared?
Good morning. I am scared. We've been talking about musicals. Storm Bert, Dawn, it's going to be nothing to sing about. This is a big one. I see what I did there. Storm Bert, not a scary name, bit of a scary storm, though. There are warnings all over the country this morning. I was looking at which warnings to sort of pick out, and if you look at the Met Office's map, it is a splattering of weather warnings for snow and ice. And what the Met Office are calling this is a multi-hazard event. And the reason for that is because we've got wind, we've got rain, and we've got snow, because you will have noticed over the past few days it's been very, very cold. And as Storm Bert comes in from the Atlantic, he's going to move over the northeast of the UK, bringing moisture and warmth in, so you might notice it getting a little bit milder, but that is going to bump into the cold air over the UK and bring some very, very heavy snow, particularly to the north of the UK and Scotland, where there is an amber Met Office warning in place for up to a foot of snow. Elsewhere, the risk is winds of up to 70 miles per hour, and also for rain of up to 6 inches of rain in parts of the country, and that could cause some flooding. And there are Environment Agency warnings out also for flooding, so not a very good day at all. Really one to watch out for.
It doesn't matter where you are in the country, you're going to get some sort of bad weather.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, the Met Office warnings are probably going to evolve through the weekend. This is a very slow-moving storm, as I said, moving in from the Atlantic, but rather than zipping across the UK and finishing, we're still going to be feeling the tail end of it on Monday morning, so a whole weekend. And I'd imagine that the Met Office warnings will evolve as we go through the weekend and as the risks sort of changes.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, what's the flooding situation? Because 6 inches of rain is a lot. A foot of snow is a lot, and obviously once all that starts to melt as well, is that going to leave us with a big problem next week?
Yeah, there could well be. I mean, if we have up to a foot of snow in Scotland and the north of England, and if that comes down to lower ground, then yes, as you get the very heavy rain, that's a lot of rain in a short amount of time, and that snow melt, there is probably going to be some issues with flooding. As I mentioned, the Environment Agency has 12 flood alerts in place all sort of around the country, and slow-moving rain. Whenever we're talking about rain becoming a problem for flooding, it's when it's slow-moving, because it stalls across the country. And this is a very, very big low-pressure system that is deepened very rapidly in a process that I always love to describe called explosive cyclogenesis, or otherwise known as a weather bomb. You'll see them in the newspapers all the time, a weather bomb. This is, it's a deep drop in pressure in a very, very short amount of time, but it's also very slow-moving. So a lot of rain, some very strong winds, snow, not a very nice weekend for anybody, I'm afraid.
And we had some of the coldest weather recorded this early in the season, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We had
the week just gone.
Yeah, minus 11.8 we had in Tulloch Bridge in Scotland when the cold snap hit. But interestingly, though, because it came down from the north in a proper, real Arctic blast, slowly down from the north, in Cornwall the temperature was plus 11, so there was a difference of about 20. So as that moved down, you could feel it. But as I said, that cold air is over us now as that storm comes in from the west, and where the two meet, that's where you're going to get fireworks. So, you know, batten down the hatches this weekend.
Why is it, considering we are, you know, in size, not a large country, really, compared to most others, why is it that our weather can be so extreme from one end to the other?
Yeah, well, this is one of the things I love about the weather in this country. It's the best country in the world to cover the weather. We are right under the jet stream. So as opposed to if you go further south into Europe, they're sort of under the jet stream. And if you go further north, they're over the jet stream. We are in a position in the northern hemisphere with the jet stream right over us. So it's the jet stream that governs our weather. And depending on how far it moves either way, you can get all the seasons in one day, because the jet stream brings cold air down from the north if we are north of the jet stream, and if it's further north, then warm air comes up from the south, and if it's in the middle, you get both. And the jet stream really governs our weather. So we're in a part of the world where our weather can change just like that. And we've had that, you know, we've had in the summer, we have blisteringly hot days, and then the next day it's freezing cold and rain and snow. Really great fun for people like me to cover the weather. Not so much fun if you don't like it and you're getting wet and...
Oh, yeah, well,
and we are, I know, we're not ready. We are literally a month away from Christmas. It's the 23rd of November.
Please don't.
Go on, let me on. Go on. Is it going to be a wet Christmas?
It is!
Yes!
I just made that up because actually...
I don't care. Stop. Just stop there. Just stop.
But it could be, put it that way.
Could be, yeah.
Brilliant.
Could be.
Nathan Renner, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, Britain's economy is stagnating and the private sector is shrinking, all following the autumn budget.
Who'd have thought? That's according to new data released by economists who warn that tax rises are damaging confidence.
Well, yesterday, the pound dropped to its lowest level against the dollar since May.
But despite this, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has reiterated her claim that the budget provides stable foundations for growth.
Let's talk to the former chair of the Lib Dems, Mark Oaten. Mark, good to see you this morning. Rachel Reeves, in response to these latest figures, has said, I'm not content with the state of the economy I inherited. that is why growth is this government's #1 priority.
Well, it's not going very well, is it? And I think a lot of people had some sympathy that the Labour government were inheriting a difficult economic situation, but instead of fixing it, they seem to be making it even worse. And wherever you look at all of the various indicators, whether it is on inflation, that's starting to go up again, whether it's on what's happening to the pound, which is getting negative, the stock exchange is stagnant, and now you've got this alarming warning from businesses saying that because they're taking on the national insurance requirement, it means that actually they're going to pass on those costs to consumers. All round, this is looking pretty shambolic.
Can they not see what's going on? I mean, you know, it was only a couple of weeks ago, Rachel was saying, my budget will match the greatest economic moments in Labour history. The only person that appears to think that is her.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted a budget which was full of optimism, one which said, look, we've had difficult times, we're going to move ahead. And in fact, what we've got is one which seems to be suggesting more stagnation. And I think what's most concerning is that they don't seem to have a grip on a sensible economic policy. Whether you like Thatcherism or Blairism or whatever you call it, they seem to have some kind of economic vision, some plan. This strikes me as, if you like, a poor man's version of that awful Liz Truss budget, ill thought out and not put together and not looking at the consequences. You make a statement about, for example, national insurance, but it's breathtaking that they hadn't realised the consequences that would have on businesses in terms of employment in the future and costs going up.
Which brings in the two key areas, doesn't it? Pensioners, of course. I mean, and all the decisions made around winter fuel allowance at a time when the price cap's gone up and people are really struggling. But also which saves, not a huge amount of money. And then the farmers' issue, national protests, which is only going to raise 200 million quid, or so, which is obviously a drop in the ocean.
And I think that I just talked about sort of economic naivety, and these two suggest political naivety, because you go into a general election, you don't say a word about these issues, and then a few weeks afterwards you spring such a shock on pensioners, and we're going to see, aren't we, energy prices going up in January, so the feeling of losing that allowance for pensioners is going to be even greater. And then when you hold 100 rural seats, you suddenly offend farmers in the way that they've done. Now, they may be right that it's not that many farmers affected, but the consequences are it sends a message that you don't get rural communities, that you don't get agriculture. So these are two huge own goals on top of what we seem to have is a chancellor who's frankly losing her grip on the economy.
Mark, you mentioned Liz Truss earlier. I mean, Liz Truss infamously didn't do any impact assessment of her budget or even warn people what she was going to do. Rachel Reeves seems to be going down that same path and making the same mistakes. And we know the fact that, the pensioners, if they all applied for pension support, any money the government make from it will be wiped out. And likewise, farmers, the money the government hope to make from that would fund the NHS for one day. It's all alienating people, making people's lives very miserable and very hard for nothing.
And so many of these issues, one would have thought that if you lay in the bath for a couple of hours and thought it through logically with a bit of common sense, you could find a simple solution to this. If they really wanted to do something around the winter fuel allowance, we'll set the threshold at a different level so that very, very few pensioners are affected. If you really did want to tackle something around the farming, putting some protections in place so that farmers could pass on at least for 1 or 2 generations. There are simple fixes to these problems, and it's breathtaking as an outsider looking in. I'm not an economic specialist. I may have a bit of wisdom about politics, but I could see how I could fix these. And I think a lot of people are beginning to feel that this Starmer-led government just lacks the experience. We saw John Prescott die this week. I think back to some of the big beasts that we had in politics, the Jack Straws, the Tony Blairs, the John Prescotts, the Gordon Browns. These were substantial figures in the Labour Party. I don't see the current bunch having the same gravitas.
I mean, I'm not an economic expert either, and I couldn't come up with solutions while lying in the bath on this one. But what I could do, is look at what was happening and say, well, this isn't going to help growth, which Rachel Reeves, as she says, is her number one priority. I mean, these official forecasts now suggesting that the tax rises will stymie economic growth over the next 5 years for the term of this government. I mean, it's more than obvious. So why just on the very basis of common sense aren't they getting that?
Well, I think they got themselves into a tricky situation over this commitment not to put taxes up. And so they thought, here's a clever idea. We won't put taxes up on individuals. We'll put it up so that businesses, small and large, have to pay for those taxes. That got them out of this manifesto pledge, but it's got them into a huge mess because, as you rightly say, Stephen, it's going to affect the growth. And what's probably coming down the track with some unemployment as well, because a lot of businesses are going to think twice before they take somebody on, knowing that they've got this national insurance burden.
OK, Mark, good to see you. We'll talk to you a little bit later on. Thank you. I scratched my head over it all because some of it just does seem common sense, and you just can't quite understand. I can't understand what their thought processes are. I sort of hope and pray that there is some plan in place and think, oh, actually, in 18 months it'll all turn round. But I can't see how.
Well, you think, all right, OK, let's get all the bad stuff out of the way first, and in 18 months' time, it will be better and we'll get through the pain. But, I mean, if you read this report today, and it's the front page of the Daily Mail today, it's not going to happen. There is no confidence.
No.
Businesses are saying there isn't going to be any growth. And what was the other thing they promised? Transparency. We don't appear to have had transparency either. You know, so this isn't even a political point, Stephen. It's like, I think we were all optimistic. We all wanted something to be different to come in. And instead, I just feel like every sector, farmers, old people, even young people with the university tuition fees, are being given a kicking.
Yeah.
It's like, what are they doing?
And then and then the way pensioners are getting it at the moment, which is, I mean, it's like you don't go for a group who are economically poor, sort of vulnerable, if you want to use that type of language, vulnerable, but also people who have worked and served the country all their lives and are now wanting to retire, and you go after them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's like the very last group you should go after, isn't it?
Well, they're not going to go on strike, are they?
Well, no.
Funny enough, there isn't a union for pensioners who are donating to the Labour Party. They're not going to call me cynical, but we want to know your stories. Are you a pensioner? Are you going to be suffering with the energy price cap going up, with the cold weather? Are you worried about how you're going to get through the winter? Please let us know your stories at gbnews.com/your say, because this programme is all about you, and we are very, very keen to make your voices heard.
I tell you what strikes me about the energy price cap going up in January is that it's very little difference. It's just over £21 over a year that it's going up, which for most people, and in normal times, you'd go, well, that doesn't matter. But actually, for some people, it's so bad that for some people, that is now another kick in the teeth.
If you're struggling on the basic pension and you're just above being able to, we had some stories earlier on, some people are at 13, 14p above being able to claim pension credit, and that's what, £11,300, £400 a year. That £21 a lot of money.
Yeah, which is ridiculous, isn't it?
People are terrified to put their heating on already, and we're not even in December.
It's an awful situation. You say, as John said, get in touch. Love to hear from you this morning. It's 19 minutes past 6. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories today.
Irish MMA fighter Conor McGregor has said he intends to appeal after a woman who said he raped her won a civil claim for damages. Nikita Hand has been awarded £206,000. However, she has lost her lawsuit against Conor McGregor's friend James Lawrence, who she also accused of raping her in a Dublin hotel in 2018. Mr McGregor posted on X saying he was disappointed with the verdict and would appeal.
President Vladimir Putin has said Russia has a stock of powerful new missiles ready to be used. It comes just a day after his country fired a new ballistic missile at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro, which the Kremlin says was in response to the US and UK allowing Kyiv to strike Russian territory with advanced Western weapons. It comes after the UK vowed to continue supporting Ukraine following threats from Putin to strike the UK.
And the King is planning a major tour of India, according to today's Daily Mirror, suggesting his cancer recovery is going well. It comes as the King has accepted flowers on behalf of the Queen during his arrival at the Royal Albert Hall last night for the Royal Variety performance. The Queen was forced to miss the event due to lingering symptoms from her recent chest infection.
Quite like seeing the King get flowers.
Yeah, well, why shouldn't he?
Yeah. It's just a thing men don't often get flowers like that, but it's nice.
No, I think men should get flowers more. It's lovely, look.
Yeah.
Why not?
Oh, I love that. He made sure he shook the young man's hand, who gave him a programme or something?
Yeah, and he looks... I'm just wondering, I mean, you know, Queen Camilla, she's doing it basically to protect others, mainly to protect the child who was obviously, you know, undergoing treatment for cancer. But I'm just wondering, I'm wondering if she was thinking, I haven't got to go, I've got a bit of a cold.
Maybe.
Sorry, because it's a long time to sit through, isn't it?
Yeah. But, you know, I just love the fact he's really engaging that young man in a conversation as well.
Absolutely.
Because I'd be terrified. What would you say to the King if... I don't know what I'd say. But the fact he's, you know, having a proper chat, it's lovely. I think it's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I ever met the Queen, all I could come up with saying was, oh, hello!
Oh, yeah.
It was imaginative.
Well, better than nothing.
Yeah.
Better than staying silent.
The previous Queen, not this one.
Right, let's see what the weather is going to do. We know it's Storm Bert, but let's get the details with Alex Deakin.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting, coupled with the heavy rain, could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south. Gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday, but overall a wet and a windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night. So this evening, single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning, probably in double digits, and some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland, some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, what a week it's been for farmers. They've had their say. The question is, will the government listen?
That's next. This is GB News with Stephen and John.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just a quick one from Debbie, morning Debbie, who says, I was looking at the local news yesterday online and it said schools closed because of 1.5 inches of snow. What's going on? It used to be 2 or 3 feet high, blizzard conditions, but you still went to school or work. I remember doing that. I mean, I used to walk to school, it was a couple of miles, and I remember doing that. And it was like that. It put your wellies on.
Yeah, well, my mum got married in that horrible winter. You might remember it out there, 1962, 63. My mum got married in that winter. Well, it was actually the spring, and literally the snow was in London, in the centre of London. It was like, you know, up to your thighs type thing. My mum actually borrowed my granddad's wellies, dug her way down the path to go to the church to get married, and now we have that much snow in the world grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
I just want to read this one out, actually. This is Carrie. Good morning, Carrie. She says, sitting here in Dumfries, snow falling, wearing my coat, afraid to put the heating on. Bet you Starmer and Reeves are nice and warm today, though. Lots of those messages coming in. But keep them coming. No, keep them coming, because we want to get your voices out there. That's important. gbnews.com/your say.
Well, on that, Sandra O'Neill says £1.75 a month rise in fuel costs isn't a huge amount. However, in these days of heat or eat, it could be a couple of loaves of bread.
Well,
absolutely.
Which
absolutely.
It is. We are getting down to those. I mean, you know, this is in 2024, in one of the richest economies in the world.
Yeah.
And we have people worried about whether they can afford a loaf of bread or putting their heating on.
Ridiculous. Anyway, and then, of course, you've got the whole issue with farmers, worried about what's going to happen after their day, what they can do, what their children are going to do. Well, thousands of farmers descended on London this week to protest over the government's plan to tax them at the end of their lives.
Yeah, with support from Jeremy Clarkson and Andrew Lloyd Webber, farmers came from all 4 nations of the UK.
Well, campaigners fear the introduction of inheritance tax, announced in the budget, will be crippling for British farming.
Our reporter Will Hollis has the story for you.
A workforce united by fear for their way of life and families' future.
This was the week the countryside came to the capital. By first light, coachloads of farmers left rural roads lining the motorway.
Farming is such an important industry and margins are already squeezed so tight that to put other taxes on our business would just, many businesses would just go under.
I see the budget as an attack on our industry and I'm coming to London to stand up for it.
We want to be able to plan for the future and make long-term investments, and this could really affect that.
At the heart of Britain's democracy, they came in their thousands. Their protest against inheritance tax dominating the agenda. In the autumn budget, the Chancellor announced plans to tax farmers on assets worth over £1 million when they die. For decades, they had been exempt.
From April 2026, the first £1 million of combined business and agricultural assets will continue to attract no inheritance tax at all. But for assets over £1 million, inheritance tax will apply. This will ensure that we continue to protect small family farms.
The government says only 500 farms a year will be affected as they target the wealthiest landowners. The National Farmers Union says the tax will be crippling for families. Tom Bradshaw is president of the NFU.
There will be farms that end up having to sell the whole farm because the business is no longer viable on the back of this tax.
Within weeks of the budget, farmers had arrived at the government's doorstep. Some to meet with MPs, others rallied by farming's unlikely leader, Jeremy Clarkson.
I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake.
Britain's field hands rubbing shoulders with its most famous sons, including Andrew Lloyd Webber.
In the longer term, what will happen is they'll all be bought by probably foreigners, outsiders, people who are not buying it for the love of the countryside. They're buying it purely as a long-term investment.
Young and old, generations standing together.
We took the kids out of school for the day because we thought it was important. We've got to just show them that this is wrong, you know. Some things, it's not bad to admit they're wrong, change it around.
Family farms are what have provided food for England through 2 world wars and up to now, so it's a vital part of our economy.
Farmers are refusing to back down. The government won't budge either. This protest is just a taste from the nation's food producers. Will Hollis, GB News.
Well, let's head to Snowdonia and talk to farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones. Gareth, good to see you this morning. I'm waiting for the picture to arrive. Oh, you're inside, probably as wise in the weather that we're having at the moment. Is this a fight you can win?
It's a fight that shouldn't be happening, to be totally honest with you. You know, they should be thinking about protecting food production in this country, and they haven't made their sums. You know, they've said it could affect 20% of family farms. Now, there's some people being number crunching, and you're talking now from 70 to 80% of people will be affected. So I don't know what school some of these Treasury people went to, but I think they want to go back and start to understand a little bit more about the maths. And we've lost people to this already. People have taken their own lives. This industry, you know, are on small margins. We're on our knees. We need support. And yesterday we heard that, you know, this country gives 530 million to other countries for agricultural help. It makes no sense on God's earth what they're doing. It doesn't at all. You know, back British agriculture, build a better Britain on our bellies, and don't bite the hand that feeds you, because this government is absolutely going to cripple the industry. And if people look at it in the longer term, okay, so we are sleepwalking into food shortages. There's less food being produced. You know, we're on a small island with a growing population, and, you know, we have global problems with producing food. They're talking about rewilding. They're paying farmers to grow wildflowers. Yes, we need to watch after the environment. Yes, we need to protect the farmland, but we need to be producing enough food to feed the nation as well. And that food needs to be affordable. And if you think that farmers are going to take a 20%, hit on their inheritance tax, there's only one thing they can do. They have to get that money back from somewhere. What we do is produce food. So that 20% will have to go on food inflation. So again, the Labour government haven't thought this out, because the poorer people in society are the people that are going to suffer in the long term. They are not going to be able to afford the food. We've got, energy increases coming, food increases coming, food shortages. What the hell is happening to this country? It's going to the dogs.
Well, a lot of people would agree with you. Gareth, we've got to leave it there because we're out of time, but really good to talk to you. Thank you.
OK, it's time now for our biggest and greatest British giveaway this year, and your chance to win 50... It is new, brand new. Today, ours exclusive, to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. Here's all the details you need to win that whopping 50 grand.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway.
50 grand.
Good luck indeed, especially if you're a pensioner.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Get the phone calls in. Mum, can my mum do it?
No, I don't know. Probably not. I hope a pensioner or a farmer wins that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That'd be smashing. Or a pensioner farmer.
Even better. Even better. All right, still to come for you. Aidan will have all the sport. That's in just a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The number of pubs may reach critically low levels.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is a decline in the number of pubs in Britain, and it's fallen. This is an absolutely astonishing figure. So it's basically fallen 10% in a decade. So do our maths. It doesn't take very long for that to happen. So if that carries on, we'd have, get this, only 1,000 pubs by 2074. So the big question is what will become extinct first: the bank branch on your high street, or the pub on your street corner? And this is a kind of perfect storm for landlords and landladies of, the cost of labour. Remember when the energy prices were at the high, we just realised just how much energy it keeps to keep the lights on in the local boozer. Yeah. As well as, as the cost of the golden nectar itself. So, as they call it in Australia.
Well, talking about that, I was mentioning the other day to, was it my father-in-law? I said, when I first started going to the pub, I was 15,
OK. Just that on
half a lemonade, half a shandy.
I was nearly 16, I got half a shandy. No, we used to have Monday Club, where a pint of Foster's was £1.50, and my father-in-law was saying, I went to London the other day, a pint was £8.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And when you've got those kind of prices, why wouldn't you just go down the supermarket and get 16 tinnies for
£5? So you're going all Aussie now. Put the tinnies in the esky before you have the bar.
Good day, mate. Why not?
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree, actually. I think it's concerning. A lot of people look at the high streets and they're very concerned that it's looking quite glum, to be honest. Lots of things are closing. But the reality is it's because people are not buying from the high street. They're not going to the pub, People are just deciding, what they're going to do in their spare time. Are they really going to go to the pub, or are they going to potentially go to, David Lloyd or a Nuffield, join a gym membership? They're just looking at their expenses and just deciding, you know what, we're going to actually cut costs,
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Aidan's got the sport for us this morning at 6:40 morning. Good
morning to you both.
So we've finally heard from Ruben Amorim, the new Man United manager.
Finally, yeah, exactly, because there was a bit of a delay towards, or in the preamble towards him taking over. But yeah, he's this is a job that requires big personality, and there can be no mistaking. Yesterday, he waltzed into that job, and he made his position clear, explaining what he's going to do. And he said that if he doesn't achieve success inside 2 years, they won't need to sack him. He'll know exactly that the time has come for him to depart. Now, huge amount of things in his in tray. Marcus Rashford going off to America in the international break. I mean, huge criticism from Gary Neville, former United player, although he's rode back on that a little bit. Casemiro as well, seen in Orlando. You're just saying that is this a sensible choice for Manchester United players when the new manager's about to take over? You've got issues over the jet lag. There's issue of how it affects your body. You know, on the plane, you've got a big game against Ipswich on tomorrow on Sunday. He doesn't think it was a wise choice. But let's have a listen now to Ruben Amorim yesterday. He was speaking at Carrington and Old Trafford, actually, I think it was. And we'll hear what he had to say right now.
I'm a little bit a dreamer, and I believe in myself. I also believe in the club. I think we have the same idea, the same mindset. So that can help, but I truly believe in the players also. I know that you guys don't believe a lot in these players, but I believe a lot. I think we have room to improve, and I want to try new things. So you guys think it's not possible? I think it's possible.
It's interesting what you're sort of saying. Oh, you think the players aren't any good. You think we can't try new things.
Well, it's interesting. Modern management is about, more than ever, getting your arms around the players and telling them they're great, because they're not used to criticism. You know, Gary Neville grew up with, you know, you just accept that even when you're playing well, you get criticism because you're Manchester United.
Yeah.
And there are doubts over the mental fortitude of some of these players, whether they can deal with that. Amorim knows that he's not going to get anything out of these players. Everyone else has tried bashing them down the years, and nothing.
But Alex Ferguson did pretty well with it.
He did, but not the current generation.
No,
they were different. The ones he had were different, especially early on in his career. And he achieved success almost throughout his Manchester United career, save for the first 4 years or so. But look, big job for him to do, no question about that. I do think that they managed the fixture schedule so that they could appoint a manager, so they got Ipswich Town at home. But Ipswich went to Spurs a couple of weeks ago, got a remarkable 2-1 win. Yeah. So don't expect Ipswich to roll over there. If I was an Ipswich player, especially if you're the Ipswich manager, you used to be a coach at Manchester United, and you're in the frame for the job, you're going to take your lads there and say, listen, everyone's against us. Your team talk's written for you. So don't expect Ipswich to roll over for you. That's
you're
going to
step up to the plate for that game, aren't you?
Without doubt, especially if you've been linked with the job, as I say.
Yeah.
And so United, don't expect them to have it easy tomorrow. But I think that if they had looked at a list of fixtures, Ipswich at home would have been one of the kinder ones for sure.
OK, Aidan, thank you very much indeed. We'll get more sport from you a little bit later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Still to come, Candice Holdsworth and Duncan Barts are here to see what's making the front pages of your newspapers for you.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Let's talk to Roger Kiska, who is the legal counsel for the Christian Legal Centre. Good morning, Roger. I'm really impressed, actually, by the fact that this school is taking the government to court on this. It's the only way we might get any sort of change. How important is it for these families who find a local religious school to keep their children in there? And are they all billionaires awash with cash?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this is about the fundamental right to educate your children in conformity with your religious beliefs. That's a right guaranteed under the European Convention of Human Rights. And any legislation, primary or secondary, has to be compatible with that convention. And so the basis of our claim is that this is an unfair tax because every country in the EU, first of all, it was by directive that there was no VAT on private education. In the Council of Europe, which is 56 member states, there are no other countries which put VAT on private education. This is an attack on school choice, and this is an attack on honest, hardworking parents who simply want to have their kids educated in a manner which they want them to be raised by themselves. And that, in a democratic nation, should be a given.
Obviously, Labour's logic being, just to provide some balance here, Roger, is that families who send their children to private school can afford the extra 20%, whether they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children at school. They should be able to afford it, and the schools should be able to absorb some of that cost. And that money will be spent in the state sector. Can you see the logic behind the reasoning?
To be honest, I can't, because not every school is Eton. Not every parent has the means to send their children to private education.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
6:47, morning to you. Let's go through some of the papers with the journalists Candice Holdsworth and Duncan Barks. Morning, you two.
Good
nice
morning.
to see you. Candice, let's start with the Spectator, actually, looking at the International Criminal Court. Have they lost their mind?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, this is what this piece in The Spectator by the journalist Yuan Yizhu has said. He has basically argued that the ICC has damaged its credibility with issuing arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defence Minister Yoav Gallant. He's basically alleging that they've committed war crimes, particularly starvation. They've said that they've tried to starve people in Gaza. However, people have said that actually, because there's food insecurity in Gaza, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was a tactic of war. Israel is not party to the ICC, neither is America. America has come out very strongly against this, and they've even said there's even been reports that there could be sanctions against the judge that issued this arrest warrant, Karim Khan, who they believe is pursuing a vendetta against Israel.
All right. Duncan?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because apart from America, you've also got Germany and also Hungary has said that they wouldn't arrest Netanyahu if he rocked up in their country. What we know about this country is we go so far as ministers are saying they would comply with the law, but they won't go so far as to say if Netanyahu rocked up on these shores that we would actually arrest him. So,
Well,
I mean...
But that's the same as saying comply. They would arrest him, wouldn't it, if they would comply?
Well, kind of, but you do have, senior politicians in Germany going on the record saying we would not arrest him. We don't have the Prime Minister saying
Hungary
we
have
would
invited him, haven't they?
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
So I think this one's not going to go anywhere fast, and I think Starmer's showing a lack of leadership here because he needs to decide whether or not it's all well and good ministers saying we would comply with the law, but that's not actually saying the Prime Minister saying we would arrest him if he came to this country.
And the ICC has no power to enforce this in any case, so it's down to each country what they do.
And also you've got to look at the relationship and how that impacts on our relationship with other countries around the world, including America. We know where Trump stands on this. We need to decide as a country where we want to nail our colours. Do we support the US or do we not?
And it's confusing and contradictory because officially we are allied with Israel, and yet there's this, and it doesn't make sense. It's completely incoherent.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
It does sound a bit of a vendetta, doesn't it? OK, what should we do next? Should we do Reeves? Should we do Rachel Reeves? Lots of comments coming in about Rachel Reeves. Front of the Eye today. Call for Reeves to help tenants meet the soaring costs of renting.
Well, I mean, this is the ongoing effects of the budget, isn't it? And also you have this situation where you have our Chancellor who, it appears, does not think about following stuff through in terms of, well, if I don't do this, what does it mean? So the story in the Eye, and this is down to figures seen by the Eye newspaper, is that almost 1 in 5 low-income households receiving benefits have reported falling behind on their rent. So there's this call that what needs to happen is that housing benefits need to increase in line with soaring rents in the private sector. That is not happening, and as a result, people don't have the money, so they're missing out on buying food and clothing, etc. Now, you would have thought somewhere along the line, unless you're going to include housing benefits and increase housing benefits over the course of time, and she said at the moment she's not going to do that, then consequently the knock-on effect is people don't have the money to afford to live properly.
Well, yes. I mean, but part of the issue here which isn't addressed by this, is that, I mean, there are bad landlords, of course there are, who will just hike prices left, right and centre. But a lot of landlords are really struggling because their mortgage payments have gone up and they either put the rent up or have to sell the property.
This is exactly what is going on. I mean, I know so many people whose rent has gone up by astronomical sums. I mean, they can barely make it. And in fact, I've known 1 or 2 families who've had to basically just move out their home and move in with family because it's often at the most pressured time of your life as well, when you've got a mortgage, you know, when you've got young kids, you're not earning a huge amount of money. And for these landlords, some of them also might be older, it's their one sole source of income, and they just cannot afford to have the rent any cheaper. I think it's contributing to just such a feeling of malaise in this country, such a feeling of insecurity. People feel like I do all the right things and yet I can barely afford to live.
Yeah. Candice, can we have a look at young people in the Times?
In the Times, yes.
GCSEs, that it's too big a burden of assessment, and so they should be spread out over 2 years, the actual exam process.
Yes, so this is a story in the Times, and it's amidst this curriculum review that's being carried out by the academic Becky Francis. She's been commissioned to do this by the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. And what some heads have said to Becky Francis during this review is try and spread GCSEs out over 2 years rather than 1 year, because they're saying the burden of assessment is too high and that they think there's mental health issues associated with it. Exactly, I agree with you. You are not preparing young people for life if you do this. And there have been numerous reports by professors in universities who say that students are coming to university ill-prepared for the demands of it. More and more of them are requesting extra time. A lot of them don't come to lectures. There's fewer essays being set. This is not going to set them up for life in the working world. It really isn't.
We're wrapping people up, kids up in
Well, they are.
Well, it's really not doing them any favours.
It's not. I remember, you know, clearly, many decades on, doing my GCSE English, sat in a room and having to write for 3.5 hours with a pen, your hand getting cramp, and that was the exam, and you prepped for that exam. And that is a process of learning, that is a process of education, and that is a process of life, and you're absolutely right. You know, you go through that because that is what you need to go through, and it prepares you for university, it prepares you for working life, and at what point, you've got to ask the question with this, at what point do you go, enough is enough? Because, with the greatest of respect, and I've got to choose my words carefully, but mental health issues, we all get nervous ahead of exams. We all get anxiety in various situations in our lives, taking a driving test or whatever. Sadly, it's part of life. And at what point do you go, enough, because that is part of life?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's about being resilient. It teaches you resilience, calm under pressure. I've been so impressed when my son has started school, just how rigorous a lot of it is. And if you want the kids in the state schools to be able to compete with the kids who go to the private schools, they have to be able to learn to take the pressure. Because in the private schools, they will put the pressure on them.
Just very quickly, I love this story. Duncan, it's your story from The Guardian. Is it time Band Aid changed its tune?
Yeah, so I'll try and explain this as quickly as possible. There's a musician called Fuse ODG, who I've never heard of. He's not in my record collection. He's not Paul Weller. He argues that such initiatives such as Band Aid perpetuate damaging stereotypes that stifle Africa's economic growth, tourism and investment. So this is the lyrics to the original Band Aid song. They're looking at re-releasing it in a certain way. Ed Sheeran's voice is on there. He disagrees with the lyrics. I think it's summed up brilliantly here by Bob Geldof, who responds to the criticism by saying this little pop song has kept hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people alive. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Well, that's a very fair point. Duncan, Candice, we've got to leave it there. Thank you. We've got the weather for you now with Alex.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting, coupled with the heavy rain, could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south. Gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday, but overall a wet and a windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night. So this evening, single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning, probably in double digits. And some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland. Some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you.
Well,
Stock up on
Take care, man. Cheers.
water as Storm Bert sweeps across the UK.
That's as police warn against road travel in many parts of the country.
Well, a rare red weather warning has been issued for the Republic of Ireland. Lots more warnings here in the UK. Here's what to expect.
Heavy snow, heavy rain, strong winds. Storm Bert is here and it's causing different problems across different parts of the UK. There are a number of Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for all the details.
And budget blues, the impact of Labour's tax rise is evident as new figures reveal the economy stagnating and businesses losing confidence in the government.
Farmers have been out in force this week from across the United Kingdom to protest against changes to inheritance tax. But the question is, have the government listened?
Meanwhile, Australia rushes through a bill to ban social media for under 16s. We're asking whether we should follow suit with our own ban.
Now, here's a question for you. Do you love or loathe musicals? Well, it's all come to a head, of course, because Wicked has gotten to the cinemas now, opened yesterday. So we're going to be debating whether you love it or loathe it a little bit later on.
Good morning. Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola has pledged to stay at the club even if they're relegated. Elsewhere in the Premier League, Arsenal suffer an injury blow to defender Ben White. And in the autumn internationals, we look ahead to England versus Japan at Twickenham tomorrow.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast. So the age-old debate, Stephen. Musicals. Do we love them or loathe them?
Yeah. Weirdly, so you don't like musicals. You've been on all morning about how you don't like them. And yet, as soon as that Phantom of the Opera comes on, you're waving, you're doing all this.
It's impossible not to that, though, isn't it?
Yes.
But that was just like a second clip of music. It's not like 3 hours of it.
No, see, I sometimes have enjoyed them in the past, but they never actually appeal to me.
No,
I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in the middle, so I don't know. I'm a bit torn on it all, really. But if you like them, great.
There's nothing wrong with the thing is there is this.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah, well, it is, but there's this sneering thing about musicals, isn't it? It's like it's not really cool to like musicals. You're a bit.
Is that right?
Oh, Aidan's piped up now. Aidan, you like musicals?
Well, I wouldn't say it's anything to do with being cool, is it? I wouldn't have thought so.
Musical theatre sometimes.
I went to a classical spectacular in 2006. It's not a musical as such, but it is music. It's not cinema either. I thought that was a perfect hybrid solution. Loved it.
I mean, Bet says, morning Bet, my favourite musical is Phantom of the Opera. I love the music from Les Miserables, but not so much the staging.
No.
I've never seen Les Miserables.
Oh, God, I went to see that. I felt like I should do.
So
it was, isn't it? Oh, Nathan, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I'm not the only one. I sat thinking this is the experience for a lifetime. With all these people glued to it, I was half thinking, is this going to end? And then I came out, they were going, it's brilliant, wasn't it? I thought, what did I miss?
I'm with you on that one. There's some good flag action.
Oh, God, it's all just, they'd all just stood round a flag singing, and then it's just, I mean, the music's quite nice, if you like that sort of thing.
And it goes on. It goes on and on and on.
No, it doesn't appeal to me. See, Jason, I'm a bit more pop music than classical, maybe, for this sort of thing, because Jason says, regarding musicals, my favourite is Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Now, I did see that. I saw it when Philip Schofield did it many years ago.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was a long time ago. But, I mean, it was very good.
Yeah.
It was very... Because you come out and you can sing the tunes and you're all in a bit of a...
My friend was at school was one of the kids in the show.
All right.
And he told us about it about 15 years after it happened.
Actually, I did quite like Oliver.
All right.
Yeah, that was good.
The film?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Well, they're singing that as well, don't they? And that's not quite a musical.
Film musicals are better than the actual thing. My Fair Lady, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
But I did love Evita because Madonna's in it.
I've not seen that.
Oh, she's brilliant in that.
No.
I've not seen
But
that.
I'm with Elizabeth. Good morning, Elizabeth. Saturday Night Fever. I don't care whether it's the film, the play, the book. There is a book, by the way, as well. That's what it's based on. They're all brilliant. Saturday Night Fever. John Travolta was strolling down. You can do that, can't you? That hip wiggle of John Travolta.
That's how I walk normally.
How is your lumbago, love?
No, I do. Here's one from Bet, whether it's the same Bet, I don't know, who says, I'm sure weather was more fun when they used to stick magnetic symbols on a map of the UK.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
And when and then back in the day, there used to be smiley suns when it was hot in the summer. Now we have the map going blood red.
Yeah.
It's like, don't go out, you're going to die.
Yeah. It was more fun, especially when they dropped off as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's because that's a quick change in the weather. Anyway, talking weather, it is all grim this weekend, I'm afraid to say. Storm Bert is on the way. Heavy rain, strong winds, snow to lots of the UK.
We're ticking every box, aren't we? It's expected to hit this morning with a rare red warning issued for Ireland, and the Met Office is issuing yellow weather warnings across the UK.
Weather journalist Nathan Rao is here. I mean, we're painting a grim picture picture. Is it fair to do so?
It is. Those magnetic weather symbols would be blowing off today because it is going to be a horrible day all across the country. Storm Bert is blowing in, has already blowing in through today with gusts of up to 70 miles per hour across the south. Rain, 6 inches of rain, and snow in the north because we are in an Arctic blast at the moment. It's very, very cold. And as Storm Bert comes in from the west, even though, as Alex was saying earlier from the Met Office, it's going to turn milder, but as that mild, warm air meets the cold air over the UK, in the north there is an amber warning for snow today, and that's up to a foot of snow, and elsewhere rain. They are calling it a multi-hazard event because there is all sorts of things going on: rain, wind, snow, everything. And Bert is going to be a slow-moving storm, moving through today and tomorrow and not clearing really until he moves over the northeast of the UK on Monday. So a pretty wet, windy, snowy, miserable weekend. Stay in and watch a musical.
Or GB News.
Or GB News.
We can sing for you, but no, we don't hate you that much. And next week, is it going to get better next week?
Not really, no. At the beginning of the week, no. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't bring any good news. But it is, we are in storm season. Storm Bert is the second storm of the season. We've had all Storm Ashley. Storm Bert, as I said, is slow moving. It's going to move through this weekend and into Monday. At the start of next week, it is going to remain unsettled. Milder, because unsettled always brings in from the southwest, which is milder. And then towards the end of the week, there are signs it's going to turn colder again. So there's no real good news on the way. That said, whenever I've come in here and painted these horrific pictures of gloom, there are pockets of the country that, you know, if you catch a blue sky, that be, you know, you get it's going to be a bit milder, a bit warmer this weekend. But really, I mean, certainly for today, if you look at the Met Office's website and their weather maps, it is just one big custard splatter of yellow warnings all over the place. I mean, it's hard to pin down what's happening where. So, and tomorrow, I imagine there'll be some more. So
why? I mean, I've asked you this question before, but what is going on with all of this? Because we seem to be talking about the weather and these warnings and all the rest of it much more than we ever did a couple of decades ago.
Yeah, I think there's a few things going on with this. I think, first of all, the Met Office just issues more. We are in an age of technology now, so people want more. If you think about it, when we were all young 20 years ago, not much longer than that, 20 years ago, the only weather you get would be on the 6 o'clock news, and that was it. Now there is weather everywhere. You can look at it all over the place. So I think the Met Office has to keep up and keep these warnings updated, so it appears that there are more warnings out everywhere. We're also in a more litigious age now, so if the Met Office doesn't warn about something and somebody, you know, falls off a cliff because it's windy, they'll be in trouble for not doing so. So there's more of an element of we are just wanting to, we've got more of a hunger for it. Also, we are obviously in no doubt that the climate is changing, and when we get these storms, they do tend to be a little bit more stronger than they did. We tend to be seeing more stronger storms, more extreme weather events than we generally did. So there are more warnings, put out. So I think it's a combination of all of those sorts of things that we have more of a hunger for weather news and information, and the weather is changing.
I do have 3 apps on my phone, and whichever one says it's the best weather, that's the one I'm going with. One final question. Which idiot named it Storm Bert?
Well, I have to say, I don't actually know. What used to happen was, in 2012, the storm names were all named by whichever weather company popped out a name first, they'd grab the name. Right. Then the Met Office started doing it, and they used to take opinions, like they'd open it to the public for send in your weather names and we'll choose it. I don't know if they actually still do that now. Any from the Met Office, let me know, or let us know whether they still do that. But what happens is every September, the Met Office will issue their list of storm names, and we all sit seeing what the names are. And Bert
I think Bert's all right.
I quite like it, yeah.
I think it's all right. Next one's Connell.
Yeah, and then there's a weird one afterwards.
There's Dara.
Yeah.
Then Owen. Then Floris.
Floris?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Dunno. Gerben, Hugo, Izzy, James, Kaylee Lewis, Mavis... This one I don't... Noisy? It looks Irish. I don't know.
I think this is it. I think these are being named by the Irish.
Because the Met Office named these storms in conjunction with Met Éireann, so it'll be both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Bert's all right.
It's quite fun seeing the list come out in September, though, and see what names are on there.
I'm with viewer Daryl on this one. Morning, Daryl. Daryl says Storm Bert isn't a multi-hazard event. It's bad weather. It's being honest.
If I just came in here and said it's going to be a bit of bad weather, I mean, for goodness sake.
We wouldn't pay you.
No. We wouldn't, no.
No, all right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Nathan. Good to see you.
You too.
Now, Britain's economy is stagnating. The private sector is shrinking, all following the autumn budget, apparently.
Yeah, that's according to new data released by economists who warn that tax rises are damaging confidence.
Yesterday, the pound dropped to its lowest level against the dollar since May.
Oh. But despite this, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has reiterated her claim that the budget provides stable foundations for growth.
Let's talk to the former chair of the Lib Dems, Mark Oaten. Morning once again to you, Mark. Who do we believe on this? I mean, the Treasury saying it is putting the foundations down and we are going to see growth. Growth is a #1 priority for this Parliament.
No, we believe what we see ourselves. We believe what we feel in our wages. We believe what goes on in the shops, and we believe what businesses tell us. And what they're telling us is that the consumer confidence is going down, that there is a real concern that the businesses who now have to take on the national insurance payments are going to pass on those costs to consumers. We're seeing inflation going up. We're seeing the pound falling. We're seeing the UK stock exchange falling as well. So that's what I believe, and I believe much more of that than I do Rachel Reeves, who frankly, putting all this together, has created a perfect storm, and I'm not turning this into Bert, it's a storm Reeves. All of these factors together show there's huge economic mismanagement, and I think the Labour Party are in real trouble on this issue.
You won't be surprised to hear that they are blaming the Conservative Party and their inheritance. Rachel, I'm not content with the state of the economy I inherited. That's why growth is this government's #1 priority. And yes, the black hole is indeed mentioned again. How much of it is to the fault of the Conservatives?
Look, there's no doubt they inherited a difficult situation, but what you do in those terms is make it better, not worse. What we needed was an economic programme which was thought through, which was about providing growth. They say they want to provide growth, but have they really thought this through? Because the consequences of what they've done in the budget do the very opposite. They actually reduce growth. The fact that businesses are saying that they're going to slow down, that consumers are not going to buy, that we're going to see a slowing down in the pound against other currencies, everything that she says she wants to do around growth, the actual actions and the detail of those actions, if she thought it through, would suggest the opposite. This is a slow down budget from a government that has frankly was brought in to clear up a mess and seem to be making that mess even worse.
All right, so what are the answers to this then? I mean, the Conservatives say, well, their plan was and would be again to save money by doing things like reducing the benefits packet. I mean, you know, particularly for people on disability living allowance, trying to get more of those people back into work rather than paying out more for some of them. I mean, what would you have done if you were still in Parliament?
Well, I think that the problem we've got here is that nobody during the election or after the election was honest about taxation. The simplest thing to have done was to be upfront with the electorate and say, look, we have got to find money for public services. We need to invest in infrastructure and the health service. So we're going to put income tax up, but we're not going to do anything else. We're not going to take winter fuel away from pensioners. We're not going to mess around with farmers' inheritance. We're not going to do national insurance to businesses. The problem is, because they weren't honest, they've had to avoid the obvious way, which was the income tax way, and come up with 20 other measures which people don't understand and are damaging the economy.
But the issue with that, and look, it's a perfectly legitimate point, and a lot of people may agree with you in hindsight, but when you're running in a general election, the last thing you want to do is go into it saying we're going to put up taxes.
And all three parties dodged it. But the fact is, the electorate are not stupid. They now see, straight after the election, all of these taxes coming through in different ways. And it creates a disconnect between the public and the politicians. And, you know, I'm no Farage fan necessarily, but at least one of the things you see about reform is that they are prepared to say the tough, sometimes unpopular things. I wish my party, the Lib Dems, had been more transparent about tax and had come up front and said it. But what we've got now is a Labour government who got themselves into a mess, refusing to be honest about taxation, and are now taxing everybody in all sorts of different ways, which is creating a set of unforeseen circumstances, which is probably worse off than a straightforward penny on income tax would have been.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Mark. I mean, if they'd, I think most people are resentful about is the fact we feel like we've been lied to in the manifesto. None of this was mentioned. If they'd have been honest, any party had been honest and said, we're going to put 1p on income tax for everybody, I think most people would have thought, yeah, we can do that.
Look, with hindsight, it seems simple now. I was arguing for the election because it was obvious during the election campaign. All of the economic experts were saying none of the parties have got the solution. This was a time bomb ticking away, and it's gone up in Reeves' face now, frankly, because what we've got is a government that are facing, in my judgment, not an economic recovery, but 2025 could be a really difficult economic year. And when you look at what's happening in some of our competitors' countries, they're starting to see them coming out of this economic recession. I'm really concerned that with Reeves in charge, we could be getting deeper and back into a recession again.
OK, Mark, good to see you.
Thank you.
Very much indeed. You do wonder, if we'd had more time, I would have said to me, will Rachel Reeves survive this?
Well,
but what are they going to do? It's very difficult. If there's any sort of reshuffle movement, anything else at this stage, then you almost looks like the government's done.
Yeah, they can't afford to do that. They won't do that, even despite the lack of transparency, to borrow their words, about her CVs.
Yes. Anyway,
yes.
I've said about that the better. I've seen your CV, Dawn. I mean, you should got to take it all with a pinch of salt.
I don't think I've actually used a CV since I left school. Have you?
No.
No. I mean, it's like... and I didn't lie on it either.
Didn't you?
No. Did you? Did you embellish yours?
No. So LinkedIn is your CV these days if you're on that sort of platform.
Yeah, I've seen yours. No, I wouldn't give you a job.
No, I wouldn't give myself a job. 17 minutes past 7. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories this morning.
Irish MMA fighter Conor McGregor has said he intends to appeal after a woman who said he raped her won a civil claim for damages. Nikita Hand has been awarded £206,000. However, she has lost her lawsuit against Conor McGregor's friend James Lawrence, who she also accused of raping her in a Dublin hotel in 2018. Mr McGregor posted on X saying he was disappointed with the verdict and would appeal.
President Putin has said Russia has a stock of powerful new missiles ready to be used. It comes just a day after his country fired a new ballistic missile at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro, which the Kremlin says was in response to the US and UK allowing Kyiv to strike Russian territory with Western weapons. It comes after the UK vowed to keep supporting Ukraine following threats from Putin to strike Great Britain.
And the King is planning a major tour of India, according to today's Mirror newspaper, suggesting his cancer recovery is going well. It comes as the King accepted flowers on behalf of the Queen during his arrival at the Royal Albert Hall last night for the Royal Variety performance. The Queen was forced to miss the event due to lingering symptoms from her recent chest infection.
Now, hopefully you're going to stay in for the day today because the weather is terrible, but just in case you're venturing out, here are all the details you need.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting coupled with the heavy rain could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south, gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday, but overall a wet and a windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night, so this evening single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning probably in double digits, and some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland, some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
What was I saying about the what?
I'm not saying anything. Anyway, it's time now. I'm not going to go there. It's time now for our biggest and greatest British giveaway this year, with your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could all be yours. And here is exactly how you do win it.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh, yeah, best of luck to you.
good
50 grand. It's a whopper.
I could actually afford to buy the Christmas present my husband seems to be hankering after. Ladies, is it a coincidence when you go into their man cave and on the computer screen is the same screen every single day? And in my husband's case, it's a guitar. Is this a subtle hint?
Has he not got a guitar?
He's got 5.
Well, tell him to sell the other ones first.
How many more does a man need?
Crazy.
Oh, dear. Anyway.
Right. Well, he shouldn't be looking. Well, at least he's looking on like a
be
web
worse.
page. It could. No, I didn't mean that. But it could be worse. But not on social media.
Oh, yeah, there is that. Yeah.
Because in Australia, they've banned social media for teenagers. Should we do the same thing? We'll debate that next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012. But that earned him accolades, including, in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge. And the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called Gengari Gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again. Water bamboo. What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours. This little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice and the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
7:26, morning to you. It's time for our poll of the day. Now, each year between November and March, the Department of Work and Pensions runs a cold weather payment scheme to people claiming a qualifying benefit like pension credit, income support or universal credit. So, if the temperature drops below 0 degrees for 7 consecutive days, people in those areas get a one-off payment of £25. But it seems winter payment's gone for most people.
Yes.
We're asking today, should all pensioners get the £25 cold weather payment?
Yeah, we're bringing the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned. The final result will be announced later in Nana Aqua's show.
Yeah, there's a what do you call it? QR code on your screen if you're watching on TV. If you're on the radio, go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, now, this is an interesting one. A social media ban for under-16s is off the table, according to the Technology Secretary, Peter Kyle.
Yes, he's yet to rule out the ban entirely, though, and he's looking closely at Australia, who are rushing a bill through Parliament this week.
With potential harms including bullying, poor sleep and access to harmful content, should the UK now follow Australia's lead?
Well, let's talk to Jennifer Powers from Fighting for a Smartphone-Free Childhood and free speech advocate Frank Furedi. Good to see you both this morning. Frank, what's your take on all of this? Because it's one thing to advocate for free speech, but it's slightly different, isn't it, when it comes to teenagers, to our children?
It is, and I've written a lot about the way in which children are being driven online because we're not taking them seriously offline. And what we're tending to do is seeing the problems entirely on the social media, forgetting the fact that we've given up on children being able to work independently and play independently outdoors. We've basically created a world where the digital bedroom has become this go-to area for a lot of young kids. We've given up on old-fashioned parenting, where we try to cultivate their resilience. And now we blame everything, all the problems that occur online. You have to remember that if you take something like bullying, bullying doesn't have to only take place online. It happens all the time, offline, in everyday life. But yet we only see the problem on the social media, and there's this obsession with the social media where every single problem that afflicts childhood is blamed on it. And that distracts us from actually understanding what we're doing wrong with children. So for me, and I hate when I see children with digital technology, when I see them with smartphones. I'm not a fan. I'm much more concerned about the fact that parents use their digital phones when they're having dinner with their kids and giving very bad examples in relation to that. But the real problem, it seems to me, is offline, and that's why we've got to crack the issue. So for me, the banning issue is entirely a headline-grabbing political gambit. And I think that we should be much more focused on the real problems rather than delude ourselves that anything will improve.
OK. Jennifer, the genie is already out of the bottle with smartphones. Kids have them. Try getting a phone out of the hands of a teenager. It's almost impossible. Bullying is a thing, whether it's online or in real life. We know that. But how would a ban work? How would you stop kids using phones and social media?
Right. Well, I agree with a lot of what Frank said, but I think it's two sides of the same coin. Yes, we need children to be outside and playing and having all those real world experiences that we know are absolutely necessary for their growth and development. But what is preventing them from doing that a lot of the time? And that is access to addictive smartphones and online algorithms. And it is entirely possible to do this. Okay, not maybe 100% of the time, children will always find a way, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And there are technological solutions out there to age gate the internet, essentially, to stop children going on social media sites. The reality is the tech platforms have a business model whereby the more eyeballs on the internet, the more revenue they have and the greater their profits. And if 1/3 of those eyeballs on the internet are children, they have absolutely no incentive to stop it. So whilst it might be technologically possible, they will seek to delay and minimize the harms that are happening. And we all suffer in the meantime.
Jennifer makes an interesting argument, Frank, because in effect she agrees with you, but the point is it's saying, well, because as Dawn said, the genie's out of the bottle. Unless you remove smartphones and social media from the equation, you're never going to get children back into doing what they should be doing in the real world.
Well, I think the problem is really outside of the social media domain. It's to do with our parenting and our child-rearing culture that we've developed. And that's really where we're looking at. In addition to that, I think that we know from the past there are no technological solutions to cultural problems. It's not the technology that creates the problem. It's our culture, it's our attitude towards intergenerational relationships. That's what we got to crack. In addition to that, we have to remember that there are a lot of upsides to the social media. And these upsides are, for example, social connections that are forged by some young people. There are a lot of young people that are, in a sense, not able to have the kind of experience that they should have outdoors. People who are disabled, people from certain minorities, whose entire life depends on being able to maintain those kinds of connections. So there are a lot of upsides that we shouldn't really forget about. And it seems to me that just as there are bad things offline and there are bad things on the social media, but there's also good things. And what we got to do, I think, is to get away from this obsessive belief that every single problem that occurs with children can be blamed on the social media. It's a wrong way. It's a displacement activity that actually distracts people like Jennifer and myself from actually looking at the problem.
Okay, Jennifer?
Well, a lot in there. I would say that the academic research shows that the more online friends someone has, the lonelier they are. So whilst there might be individual cases of children or young people making a connection online, overall, it's detrimental because we know what feeds the human soul is real life experiences and in real life friendships. So I think we can, on the whole, put that argument to one side, although there are exceptions. I agree with Frank that technology is rarely the answer to cultural problems. What I would say is the smartphone-free childhood movement, of which I am a volunteer, it's all about less tech. So we're not anti-tech, and I would never say that restricting access to the online world or social media is the cure-all for society or for children, but it's a pretty darn good first step. We see in schools that have smartphone-free, robust policies that levels of attendance go up, levels of attainment go up. So we can have that early peek into the world of what happens when children have 7 hours a day that are free of the tyranny of social media, and what would happen if that was expanded to the rest of their day. So I'm actually optimistic that by choosing less tech, we can support children and support families to have much happier, healthier lives.
There we must leave it. Jennifer, Frank, thank you both very much indeed. It's fascinating. I think it's fascinating, and I love tech. I'm a big geek with tech, but I think something needs to be done to get children off it.
The problem with the situation in Australia, everybody, to do this, to achieve this, everybody has to have a digital identity, because you have to prove that you're over 16 to use it, and that is gonna... You can hear the conspiracy theorists from here already, can't you?
Well, yeah. Maybe it's time we all had identity cards as well, though, and then that's...
That's a whole nother debate.
All right. Right, we've got the sport heading your way very shortly. Aidan, what have you got for us?
Yes, indeed. Well, the Manchester City boss, Pep Guardiola, says he'll be staying at Manchester City even if they're relegated. Remember, they do have these 115 charges hanging over their head. They're expecting a verdict early in the new year. We'll have more on that and the rest of the weekend's Premier League action after this break.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that, you know, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, you know, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I was just reading Brenda, talking musicals earlier on. Brenda's been in touch. I don't know what you were listening to, Brenda. She said, is there anything Stephen does like? Yesterday, it was Elvis he hated.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true.
My mum wants words.
Today, it's musicals. I didn't say I hated musicals.
He didn't. He says he wants to hate musicals, but he actually quite likes them.
It's sort of, I don't have an appeal. I have no drive to go and see one, but while on the occasions I do see one, I sort of quite like it.
Yeah, so it's like I'm not a big fan of Hugh Grant.
I'm like the Lib Dems. I sit on the fence with that one.
There's a lot of that going on. But I'm not a big fan of Hugh Grant, but every time I go and see a film with Hugh Grant in it, I quite like it. Yeah. It's a thing.
You see, we don't like sport, do we? But as soon as anything turns up...
I'm a West Ham fan. I definitely don't like sport at the moment. But I do like Hayden.
Good morning again. How are you?
Yeah, we're all right. We're all right. Let's talk Pep Guardiola. I don't understand this. Go on. Right? He says, I'm not going to leave if we get relegated. But he's just signed a 2-year contract with no break clause. No, so he can't leave.
No, he can't. But I mean, but he could easily have named his terms in that contract. I mean, everyone wants, irrespective of how wealthy you are, everyone wants Pep Guardiola as your manager. So he will have said, OK, well, I will have a break clause, and that wouldn't have been a problem. But the fact he insisted that, no, we're not going to have a break clause, we're going to be in it for the long haul. I think he's been briefed to say, look, I don't think we're getting relegated. I think that the way the wind's blowing on this court case, and we don't know anything about it, we haven't really had any intel out of it. It's ongoing right now. We're expecting a verdict early in the new year, but I don't think Manchester City are going to be punished in the way that people think they are. I mean, apart from anything else, their legal team has obfuscated for quite a long time now. They've dragged it out for as long as they can. Sometimes these cases are about the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, as we might call it, and we think that maybe a punishment might be apt at a certain period of time, but when another period of time has elapsed, it's dragged on a bit long. The appetite for vengeance or punishment isn't quite there as it was. But nonetheless, he was saying yesterday that even if they do get relegated, he's going to be there. He said a year ago that he would manage them even in League One. I mean, it's possible that they could be relegated that far down. We just don't know at this stage. But he's also said that there's a jealousy complex among the rest of the Premier League.
Well, that's because they've got so much money. It's not going to happen, is it? I mean, you know, clubs that aren't as wealthy, say like Everton, for example, you know, they get hammered straight away. Whereas Man City, it's like...
Different charges, though, completely different.
Yeah, I know,
and also, in that 115 charges, a lot of the charges are actually duplicated. So the offences aren't quite as mounted up as you might think. But nonetheless, they're in action today against Tottenham at 5:30. A ground they've struggled at in recent times. They lost there earlier in the season in the Carabao Cup. They did win there twice last season, but it promises to be a decent game. We've got some great Premier League fixtures today. I'm off to Arsenal in an exec box.
Of course you are.
Prawn sandwich.
Well, hopefully there's more.
Who's invited you?
Frank Warren, the boxing promoter, via my friend
You've
John
been sitting
Smith.
with Kia?
I don't know. He's out of the country at the minute, I thought.
Well, he's normally out of the country.
Yeah, he might pop back for a bit of hospitality.
Mario Miles and Judith Chalmers.
I know.
Judith Chalmers.
Yeah, I guess a blast from the past. But I mean, so your private box, very, very Keir Starmer.
Got a call about 10 o'clock last night. I had to ditch QPR. I had hospitality at QPR, my beloved.
And
I had to. I wouldn't ditch them easily.
So fickle.
Well, not really.
If you treat your football like this, what are you like with your women?
We haven't won at home since May, so at QPR. So I think
we're talking women or football now.
Both.
Stop it, Dawn. It's a breakfast show.
Sorry.
It's a breakfast show. Can we talk rugby?
Yes, why not?
This is going to be interesting. England, Japan.
Yes.
Because obviously the Japan coach,
Eddie Jones.
Mm.
Well, some would say that England's decline started under Eddie Jones. He's since failed in Australia, and he's now with Japan. Tomorrow, 4:10 at Twickenham. Now, there's some controversy here because the current coach, Steve Borthwick, has selected Tom Curry, the Sale flanker, and the issue here is that 2 weeks ago he was knocked sideways with concussion, and he's received all sorts of criticism, not least from Progressive Rugby, who are one of the organisations who campaign against injuries to rugby players, particularly to the head, who called Curry's call up, and he's not just in the squad, Dawn, he's in the 15, he's starting tomorrow. And they've named the team already, as is customary in rugby union, but they've called it hugely disappointing. Steve Borthwick has hit back and said there are stringent measures in place, and we've obeyed all those protocols, so he's going to be safe to play. But they need a win, England desperately, 5 defeats in a row. And they keep failing late on in games. You've discussed it week in, week out. Is it an issue with psychology? The RFU privately, I've learned this week, believe that there's a big difference between the Gallagher Premiership, the league, the bread and butter every week. It doesn't provide the requisite level of fitness for international rugby. The level is so high, so they've got to bridge that gap somehow. But nonetheless, they should beat Japan at home tomorrow. They've got to arrest this run of defeats. And there's a good stat for you. In the last 39 games, England, on only 13 occasions, have they won the final quarter of the game. So that means that they're failing desperately. It's not a recent thing. It goes back to Eddie Jones's time, but it's a problem that needs arresting and quickly.
Yeah, OK. Aidan, thank you very much indeed.
Well, this is GB News Breakfast with Stephen and Dawn.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
This is one of those angles, really. There's going to be so many different sort of tentacles which go from Donald Trump winning and where this leads for the royal family. Where's it going to lead for Harry?
Well, put it this way, Harry's just bought a house in Portugal and it might come in pretty handy in the next few months because Donald Trump has said in the past that he wouldn't protect Harry, that he would be on his own, and that if it was down to me, this is Donald Trump, if it was down to me, he wouldn't have any protection. And the Heritage Foundation tried to expose his form, and in the end, he was protected, and a judge ruled that the form would never be revealed. I just wonder whether now Trump is in power, I'm not saying it's top of his priority list, but eventually that form might be exposed.
And just so to remind viewers and listeners, Charlotte, in his book Spare, in which he, of course, dumped tons of abuse on his own family, Harry admitted to taking illegal drugs such as cocaine.
Yes, and there have been, I better not name her, but there's been a certain supermodel who has been exposed for taking cocaine. She couldn't go into America for 10 years. It doesn't matter how famous you are, you can't take drugs and go into America. They're very strict on this. So if Harry didn't tick that box, and then he wrote in Spare that he's taken magic mushrooms, marijuana and cocaine, it wasn't a very clever move.
Oh, the implications, though, of Donald Trump saying that Harry can't live in America, like the political ramifications of that. I can't see Starmer handling that very well.
No, and well, he just might say he wants people in America who've told the truth about drug taking, and he's got zero tolerance on illegal drug taking, Trump.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Time to go through the papers now with the journalists Candice Holdsworth and Duncan Barks. Morning, you two.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Let's have a look, Duncan, at the Telegraph, should we? Because we've had all this hoo-ha recently about non-crime hate incidents, particularly with Alison Pearson, the journalist involved in all this. Anyway,
Telegraph writer.
but the Home Secretary is going to expand them.
Well, it appears that's the case. She's committed to reversing the Conservatives' decision to downgrade the monitoring of the incidents, specifically in relation to anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, so they can be logged by police. I think most people watching GB News this morning will be thinking, and this was, as you rightly say, brought to our attention because of Alison Pearson, who was visited by Essex Police on Remembrance Sunday morning. Most people watching GB News will be going, this is not the best use of police time. If my car gets nicked, if my bike gets nicked, there's shoplifting that's rife around the country. I expect police to be dealing with that, not looking at the words that someone might stick on social media and going, oh, actually, is that a form of hate? And that gets us into the whole area of what do you class as hate? And who decides if someone's opinion is just an opinion or it crosses that line into what is classed as hate? And I don't know who makes that decision.
Yeah.
No.
Well, there were 3 police forces got involved in this investigation.
I know.
Meanwhile, we've got paedophiles and domestic violence abusers walking out of jail.
Yes. And I mean, when the Telegraph reported on this, they had a huge stat on how little crime, like shoplifting and burglary and theft, Essex Police have actually solved. I mean, like embarrassingly low. So they should no ways have been focusing on something like this. I think also with these non-crime hate incidents, I mean, a lot has come out about what exactly has been recorded, and sometimes it's been children as young as 9 who've insulted each other in the classroom.
I mean, it's still crackers.
Yeah, I mean, when you've got police investigating children calling each other's names in a school playground, and the world seriously has gone mad.
Can we look at The Guardian, Candice? Gordon Brown, former PM, got involved in the assisted dying debate. And he sort of said, no, doesn't think it's the right answer.
Yeah, so this is a very moving piece in The Guardian that Gordon Brown wrote about the loss of his 11-day-old daughter, Jennifer. She had a brain hemorrhage and there was no way she was going to survive. I cannot imagine how heartbreaking that was. He said that has shaped his views on assisted dying, and what he thinks is that instead of ending people's life, we need better palliative care and end-of-life care, because he felt those moments he spent with his daughter were the most important. What I find very interesting about this debate is you'll have people on either side who've had an experience. So you may have seen someone, for instance, who supports assisted dying, who was with a loved one in their final moments. It was painful, it was traumatic, and some have said it seared them. And in those moments, they felt, OK, people should have control. I like that people are sort of coming out and having a bit of a debate about this, you know? I think that we need to have a very rich conversation about this topic. Me personally, where I fall down on it, I'm against a sister dying because of my own personal experience of seeing someone in their last days. But I can understand why people take the other position as well.
Yeah, I don't know about this one. I do find it very odd, and it's not that it's not a valid opinion that Gordon Brown holds, but tying it in with the tragedy that he suffered, which bears no relation, actually, to someone more likely to be of an older age who's wanting to make an informed decision.
It affects people in different ways, doesn't it? I read the Gordon Brown piece earlier. It's a very emotional piece for very understandable reasons. The more I hear about this debate, the more I find myself being concerned about whether or not MPs are properly informed on making a decision. Now, obviously, they're lawmakers in this country, but they are MPs. It's a free vote, and sometimes you do wonder whether or not they're going to vote in a certain way purely for their own political interests. You look at Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, who said that already he's going to vote against, you know.
For financial reasons, he was implying, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I'm increasingly uneasy that MPs are informed enough to actually make a decision.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's one of those debates that will go on. And as you say, Duncan, it is a free debate. It's not meant to be a long political science, which is why I take issue of what Wes Streeting came out and said about the financial
Well, he's making it political, isn't he?
He is making it political, and it shouldn't be. It should be purely on your experiences. OK, should we talk some royals? I know, I like this story. It's a good news story, and we're a bit short of those, Candice, aren't we? This is the Mirror, the front page of the Mirror.
Yes. So the front page of the Mirror is that King Charles is to do a tour of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. This is one sign that his cancer care his cancer treatment is going well and he's recovering. On the political side, people are saying that what's interesting about this is India has it started getting closer to the other BRICS countries, along with South Africa, and people are sort of thinking, oh, is the world splitting in two? But it's actually playing a neutral role here. And Narendra Modi, the PM, has said, no, we welcome King Charles. We'd very much like to have him over. So that's interesting to observe the geopolitics of this situation.
It is interesting. Sticking with royals, Duncan, and the Sun, the Princess of Wales getting more involved with what happened in Southport.
Indeed. So there's an event taking place at Westminster Abbey on December the 6th. It's the Together at Christmas celebration, and the Princess of Wales will be attending. I'm a massive fan of the Princess of Wales. I think she and William are the modern face of the royal family, and I think it's fantastic. And what Kate has decided to do is invite the child survivors of the Southport stabbing, which is a remarkable thing to do. We can't even begin to imagine what those children have experienced and what they continue to experience. So it's good we're doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, I think it's lovely. And she did go up there, didn't she, with William in one of her first sort of public outings. We've just got 30 seconds. Can we talk about British inventions in the Daily Mail?
Marvellous. This is a great piece. They've done a survey about stuff that Brits have invented, and we have a bit of ignorance in our country. We don't know what we've invented.
No.
Dawn, you'll love this. The corkscrew.
Right.
Oh. Yes, I thought you might.
Yeah, I was personally responsible for that one.
Invented by the Reverend Samuel Henshaw in 1795. The Macintosh raincoat, 96% of Brits had no idea it was invented in Britain. Invented by Charles Mackintosh.
What a surprise!
Yes, who would have thought it? So some great British inventions, including the internet that was invented by Tim Berners-Lee in 1989.
Fabulous. Love it. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Here's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting, coupled with the heavy rain, could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south. Gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday. But overall, a wet and windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night. So this evening, single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning, probably in double digits. And some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland. Some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my. Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders, and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant, at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. And he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and for the next nearly 400 years had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian states absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded in an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Stock up on food and water as Storm Bert sweeps across the UK.
That's as police warn against road travel in many parts of the country.
Well, in Ireland, there's a rare red weather warning, plenty of amber ones here, but here's what to expect throughout the day.
Heavy snow, heavy rain, strong winds. Storm Bert is here and it's causing different problems across different parts of the UK. There are a number of Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for all the details.
And budget blues, the impact of Labour's tax rises evident as new figures reveal the economy stagnating and business losing confidence in the government.
Farmers have been out in force this week from across the United Kingdom. All those inheritance tax changes causing an awful lot of upset. But of course, the big question is, are the government listening?
Musicals, love them or loathe them. With Wicked finally heading to the cinemas this weekend, we're debating one of those big, divisive questions we're all talking about. Do you love or loathe musicals?
Good morning. Ruben Amorim speaks for the first time as Manchester United manager, insisting he's the man to return the club to glory. Elsewhere in Manchester, Pep Guardiola pledges to stay at City even if they're relegated. And in the autumn internationals, we look ahead to England v Japan at Twickenham tomorrow.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast.
All right, we're going to kick straight off with the weather because Storm Bird is on the way. Heavy rain, strong winds, plenty of snow to lots of the UK.
You name it, you're going to get it. It's expected to hit this morning with a rare red warning issued for Ireland and the Met Office issuing yellow weather warnings across the rest of the UK.
Well, let's head to County Down and our reporter Doogie Beattie. Oh, heck, Doogie, looks terrible.
Wow.
Yes, good morning. Welcome to County Down, a very, very blustery County Down. Late last night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, we had snow. Now we've been battered by winds and really, really ice-cold rain. It's not sleet. The rain is just so freezing cold. And what's happened is the roads are now flooded, trees are down, and underneath that line, water is ice. So anybody that is out and about this morning, please, please be very, very careful, because this storm is only but picking up at the moment. We have cleared the snow side of it, but things are getting worse on the wind side. Cork and Galway have got a weather warning that is coming in for heavier winds, and that, of course, is in the deep southwest coast of Ireland. But here we are on the east coast, and why we're here is this is now heading towards Britain as we speak, crossing the Irish Channel. So, Stephen, Dawn, it will be with you very, very shortly.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not laughing at you, but I am. Doogie, what effect is it having on transport over there at the moment?
Well, we've had trees down this morning, blocked roads right across the province. There is the odd power outage, but as I always say in these storms, the Irish and Scottish electricity boards are well used to this, and they can deal with that pretty quickly. Areas such as Ballymena and out towards Larne, it will have effect, I would imagine, on ferry services at this stage, and flights will most definitely be curtailed. But really, for me, talking to anyone in this part of the UK, it's driving this morning. Really, please, please be very, very careful.
Look, we'll leave you to try and get a bit of shelter, Doogie. Thanks very much indeed. Heck, you can't believe, because we talk about bad news, but look at poor Doogie there.
I know. I mean, he does look quite cute in his little waterproof stuff, doesn't he?
Wow.
He looks like a little wet gnome.
He does he doesn't agree with you there, Dawn. All right, cheers, Doogie.
Sorry, Doogie.
It's
brave.
But honestly, well, ridiculous.
Dreadful.
It does look. That looks really, really awful.
So be careful out there. I mean, I know we're sort of like joking about the name of this storm, but I mean, it is. I mean, that's frightening. And the impact it has on people trying to go about their business. And it's like, you know, the Met Office is saying it's a red weather warning there. You know, don't go out unless you absolutely have to. So we make Doogie go and stand in one of the most dangerous places we can find. Just go and stand on the beach over there, Doogie. You know, the massive waves coming in.
Doogie loves it. Doogie loves it. Right.
Bless him.
Let's have a look at the money, should we? Because Britain's economy is stagnating. I have to say, it doesn't come as a huge surprise, does it? The private sector is shrinking as well. All this following the last budget.
Just bank it. That's according to new data released by economists who warn that tax rises are damaging confidence.
Well, yesterday, the pound dropped to its lowest level against the dollar since May.
But despite this, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has reiterated her claim that the budget provides stable foundations for growth.
Let's head to Westminster and our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Morning, Olivia. I mean, in the wake of this, the Chancellor just says we're preparing for growth. There's going to be growth, which is the exact opposite of what this report says.
Well, exactly. Rachel Reeves is carrying on with this mantra that she is setting up in place the conditions for growth later on. But as you say, Stephen, this report from notable economists suggests otherwise. The private sector has shrunk to a 13-month low. The pound has dropped against the dollar, and we are yet to see the full effects. I think this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. The main problem is that national insurance rise for employers. So during the general election, Labour made this pledge that they wouldn't be raising tax on working people. And they didn't define that during the election period. After the election period, they made clear that what they meant by that, it was very, very specific and very narrow, in fact. They meant that they wouldn't be raising personal national insurance, VAT or income tax. So instead, they've sort of found a loophole in their own rules, and they've raised tax on employers who have to pay national insurance on behalf of their employees. Now, that will filter down to working people, and we already are seeing that that's exactly what's happening. Businesses that can't afford, businesses particularly which are operating on very fine margins, so for example in retail or in care homes where workers aren't that well paid, businesses just can't afford that rise to national insurance. So what they're doing instead is making swathes of cuts. Now, they're doing that in preparation for this national insurance rise, which will come in April. And what we're seeing as the effect of that is unemployment is slowly ticking up. That's going to have a very real effect on ordinary households, of course. And then also we're seeing the effect on businesses as well. We're seeing this slump in the pound, and we're seeing private sector activity decreasing altogether. Now, how exactly that sets up the conditions for growth remains to be seen. What Rachel Reeves would argue is that the Conservatives left this £40 billion black hole, she claims, in public finances, and only once that's been plugged with tax rises can she start to think about growth. But what these economists are essentially saying is that actually we need growth really quickly, and at the moment the budget doesn't look as though it's going to achieve it.
Olivia, does Rachel Reeves not read the newspapers at the very least? Front page of the Daily Express today, front page of the Times, front page of the Mail. I mean, can they not see what everybody else seems to be able to see?
Well, I think that Rachel Reeves has made her bed and now she's going to lie in it. We've seen this with Rachel Reeves before, and perhaps it's an admirable characteristic in a politician. Once she has decided on a course of action, take, for example, that cut to winter fuel, she decided she was going to do it. It was incredibly unpopular. There were protests, all over the country. There were front pages of every newspaper for days on end. We talked about it on GB News a lot, but she decided to go ahead with it anyway. And it seems the same thing has happened with this budget. She was given warnings before she made this budget announcement of the effect that it could have on businesses, but she is absolutely convinced that the only way to achieve growth is to sort of plug this black hole first by moving around some money, as it were, moving money out of the pockets of businesses into the pockets of the Treasury, and then once that's got in order, to concentrate on growth. So she very much does have a philosophy, and she is following it through to the letter. We just need to find out whether that philosophy is actually wise.
Yes, and whether it will work. And the problem is with that, we won't know for some time, will we? Olivia, thanks very much indeed. I mean, it's a leap of faith then, isn't it? And we've they're saying it's all well and good for her to have a philosophy, but she's making us have a leap of faith to say, all right, they will sort it out in a couple of years.
Yeah, but it's a leap of faith. But we live in the real world. People are going to be losing their jobs. Prices are going to be going up.
Yeah.
What happens to these businesses? And we're not talking just about big businesses, small businesses here. They're going to go bust. I mean, how is that about growth? I mean, it's nothing to do with the leap of faith. This is all to do with living in the real world.
Well, except there is an argument against that, isn't there, to say, and it's not a direct comparison, but to say Margaret Thatcher, who got Britain back on its feet, of course, but not without a lot of pain in the interim.
But she was honest about the pain that was to come.
Yeah, well, that's true.
That was the thing. She did say, right, this is going to be really horrible. I know Labour said that as well, but Margaret Thatcher was at least honest about what was going to happen and how it was going to happen. We were told it was about growth, about the working people.
And we're still being told about this is why growth is the government's number one priority, she said, in response to this report, even though some of the biggest retailers in the UK say tax rises will stymie growth for the next 5 years.
So she's not actually reading the room. She's not seeing what businesses are saying to her.
Well, at least, she is. But what she's not doing is responding to it.
Well, she just keeps repeating the same
She's
stuff.
repeating the same stuff, and actually what we need is for her to is specifically address these claims with actual answers as to why her policy will work in the long term.
Yeah, and when it's going to start working.
Yeah, and that's what we have. That's what we're not getting.
No.
Which is the transparency issue. We said we were going to get transparency, and at the minute it does feel like you're talking to a brick wall.
It really does. I mean, transparency, growth, the working people. Well, a lot of us won't be working soon if we carry on at this rate.
I mean, I want this policy to work.
So everybody does.
Because you want the economy to grow. Whoever you vote for, you want it to grow. So we want it to work, but it's very difficult to see how it's going to.
Just a bit of honesty would be handy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right. That's got that off our chests.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah. Talking of chests, sorry, I've lost your name now. Can you wear a more modest top under your jacket, Dawn? Sorry, Mum.
It's not immodest.
Sorry, I've forgotten your name, but yeah, thank you for messaging.
Oh, you look lovely.
Thank you very much, darling.
You
So
look
do you.
lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Right, let's have a look at some of the other key stories this morning at 12 minutes past 8.
Irish MMA fighter Conor McGregor has said he intends to appeal after a woman who said he raped her won a civil claim for damages. Nikita Hand has been awarded £206,000. However, she has lost her lawsuit against Conor McGregor's friend James Lawrence, who she also accused of raping her in that Dublin hotel in 2018. Mr. McGregor posted on X saying he was disappointed with the verdict and would appeal.
President Putin has said Russia has a stock of powerful new missiles ready to use. It comes just a day after he fired a new ballistic missile at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The Kremlin says that was in response to the US and UK allowing Kyiv to strike Russian territory with Western weapons. It comes after the UK vowed to continue supporting Ukraine, even though we've had threats from Putin to strike the UK.
OK, but some good news. The King is planning a major tour of India, according to the Mirror newspaper today, suggesting his cancer recovery is going well. It comes as the King has accepted flowers on behalf of the Queen during his arrival at the Royal Albert Hall last night for the Royal Variety performance. The Queen was forced to miss the event due to lingering symptoms from her recent chest infection. Oh. I shouldn't have said that now. You keep staring at my chest. I thought it was quite modest, really.
It's modest. I don't understand with some people.
I'm going to find your name now. Sorry, lovely. The screen scrolled through so far. But
I just don't understand. It's not that she's, especially if you're listening on the radio, she's not wearing a busty top.
No, I'm not wearing a corset. That comes later. This is lots of love in the room for poor Dougie. Dougie beating out on the island on the weather. Dawn, good name, Dawn, says, "Oh, Dougie, bless your little heart. Stay safe over there and go and get in the dry and warm."
I love it when people get technical. Jeff's been in touch, being all technical. Everything's rocking about for Doogie, but the camera is steady. Why is that? Is he using some kind of gimbal? I don't know. A gimbal.
What's a gimbal?
A gimbal is something that you have with cameras and it keeps them steady, so everything moves around it. It's like when you use a Steadicam.
Oh.
And so you can move it all around, but the
Right.
camera stays absolutely level. And is Doogie using a gimbal? I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you know what a gimbal even is. I don't.
I have to say, I did notice myself he was on a very steady shot.
He was on a very steady shot, considering he could barely stand up. But I'm not going to read that one out.
Oh, right.
German 15, I can't read that out, although I do agree with you, by the way.
All right, you have to show me that one in a minute. Right. OK, we're going to take a very short break just to have a look at that weather, actually, for you, because it is grim for really most of the UK.
Yeah.
Alex Deakin has got all the details.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting, coupled with the heavy rain, could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south. Gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday, but overall a wet and windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night. So this evening, single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning, probably in double digits, and some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland, some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I feel like, like if you're on X and you have to say, retweets may not be an endorsement or agreement or whatever, that sort of thing. It's a bit like this with this comment that's come in from General Cream Slice. Good morning.
Good name.
Which I think is quite funny in its own way. Can someone tell Putin he doesn't need to send missiles to destroy Britain? We're doing it for him. Which is, it's very dry humour, but I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we
just feel a bit like that.
Well, it does feel about. Oh God, this chair again.
You're going down.
Going down. But it's like, what happened to a sense of humour? Because we were just looking at a cartoon series from 1990 that
you just couldn't do today. No.
But you couldn't do it anymore because it was funny.
Well, yeah, it would be deemed desperately inappropriate now. But it is just funny. It's like seaside humour.
Yes, exactly. Postcards. Remember the naughty postcards you used to get? They were funny. You can't do... Now they'd be all sexist and offensive and probably racist and homophobic and every other ism and obism.
Yeah, just have a bit of sense of humour. And if you can't laugh at yourself...
You know what? The one thing we need in this country at the moment with Rachel Reeves and her "this is the best budget ever" is humour.
Yeah.
Because you can't deal with that level of madness.
No.
You've got a sense of humour about it.
No, you do need a bit. We need a bit of a laugh.
We do, yeah. But I can't wait for your other half to see that Google history on there now.
Yeah, I'll be working.
What were you searching for?
Yes, well, he's watching now.
Oh, is he?
So he'll know full well that it was your suggestion.
No, it wasn't, Daniel. He actually came up with it during the break. I just
so did not. I'd never heard of it. I'm not that cheap. Now, time for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway. And you could win, wait for it, £50,000 in tax-free cash.
It's evidently the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it really could be yours. I'm wondering what I'd do with that. Here's all the details that you need to win that whopping 50 grand. Oh, God, good luck.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway.
The sun'll come out tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I can't sing to save my life. That's probably why I don't like musicals.
Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow. No,
You're really good, actually.
I'm not actually a musicals fan particularly.
No,
but
I can't stand them. But I did like Saturday Night Fever and Grease, but maybe because I was there. And they were fun. My theme is fun today.
Yeah. Anyway, look, do you like them or loathe them? We're going to be debating that in a couple of minutes.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport at 8:24. Aidan's here. Morning.
Good morning to you both.
So Man United have got their man at last, but can he achieve anything, or is he too much of a dreamer?
Good question, actually. That's the word he used. In fact, we're going to hear him use that very word in a moment.
For Stephen to ask a question that's anywhere near decent.
It's true.
That was the implication there.
It's true. It's true.
Not at all. Not at all. Listen, I've just got a sneaking suspicion they might have their man here. This is exactly the kind of profile they didn't have in the last 11 years since Sir Alex Ferguson lived. Since he was in the job. Now, you look at the profile of the people who've succeeded Ferguson. You talk about David Moyes. You talk about Louis van Gaal. You talk about Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Erik ten Hag. Now, they all had the personality to do the job, but there was just something missing. They was hugely successful, but the job still ate each one of them up in various different ways. This guy was wanted by Manchester United. Yes, there was a delay getting into Manchester United, but he's there now. He's got an excellent record with Sporting Lisbon. He was a player of some considerable repute with Benfica and other clubs as well. And he's walked into Old Trafford yesterday, and this is what he had to say.
I'm a little bit a dreamer, and I believe in myself. I also believe in the club. I think we have the same idea, the same mindset, so that can help. But I truly believe in the players also. I know that you guys don't believe a lot in these players, but I believe a lot. I think we have room to improve, and I want to try new things. So you guys think it's not possible? I think it's possible.
So a dreamer walking into the theatre of dreams.
Does he have the dressing room? I mean, he's got to come in and start kicking some bottom, hasn't he, with players, you know, getting jet lag, flying off in the international break and all that sort of thing. So he's got to start being tough.
Well, I felt that this job needs somebody to go in and rattle some cages in that dressing room. That's the one thing it's lacked. I mean, there are various times in the last 10, 11 years since Fergie left, they've had the players, there's no question about it. Marcus Rashford is a case in point. 2 years ago, he scored in excess of 30 goals. He performed well at the World Cup with England as well. But there he is, jetting off We saw going. We went off to Belfast last year and incurred some problems over there, didn't he, with his manager Erik ten Hag, and then he goes to America, gets criticism from a club legend, Gary Neville, although he's rode back a little bit this week when he met Amorim himself, and Casemiro, another experienced player. You know, Champions League winner with Real Madrid. What a bad choice going to Orlando. The new manager's coming in. You know, you don't want to be doing a few extra yards at the training ground,
Yeah,
don't
you'd
you?
want to be
Surely.
impressing the new boy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, even if it's just for show. Just show the right mentality, show the right attitude. And that's why Amorim says there, you don't believe in these players, but I do. You don't get anything these days in the modern dressing room for going out in the media and criticising your players. Not unless all is lost. You might take a swipe when you know you're on your way out. But you're not going to get much change out of these players. And they're not going to run through brick walls for you if you go and criticising them. Jurgen Klopp was very, very good, very effective at sticking his arm around a player. And he got a lot more of that, a lot more out of the player as a result of that than he would with the stick.
Talking to managers, Pep Guardiola.
Yeah,
if Man City get relegated, he's not going anywhere.
That's right, just 3.5 miles across the city at the Etihad. Yeah, Pep Guardiola, we know that the 115 charges might be reaching an initial conclusion anyway in the early part of the year, notwithstanding any appeals which might drag the process out that bit longer. But yeah, he said that, he said last year that he managed him in League One, and after he's signing a 2-year contract extension this year without a break clause, he said that he's going to stay for the duration, come what may, even if they fall down the divisions. Which, I being a cynic, I think that someone's had a word with him prior to these or during the contract negotiations and said, actually, the punishment and the sanctions aren't going to be as severe as people think. And it brings us into another issue as well. Pep Guardiola thinks that it's a bit of a siege mentality thing that you try to adopt when you're a manager, the world's against us. But he does believe that the majority of the Premier League would like to see Manchester City get their comeuppance, as it were, in inverted commas, and sink down the leagues. But that kind of plays into the way you want the mentality you want to foster among your team. Listen, all this lot want us to fail. Let's go and prove them wrong. And they're at Tottenham today at 5:30.
And it's always nice to weave a Spice Girl into your sports report.
Yes, it is. Christian Horner. I think it was last December. There were allegations.
That long ago?
It was. Yeah, we covered it. We covered it quite extensively. But he's just thanked. He's come through the ordeal. He's been cleared, and he's thanked his partner Jerry Halliwell. He said that your partner is always the one who you share your difficulties with. She's been hugely supportive. You learn about yourselves in times of difficulty, and I was determined that we would navigate ourselves through difficult waters. How nice.
Oh, it's nice to have a love story.
Well, good on them.
Thank you, Aidan.
Good on them. Thank you very much indeed. Right, still to come, we're talking musicals.
You're going to sing us into the break?
No, I'm not.
I can't sing, obviously.
But yeah, do you love them or do you loathe them? Talking about that next.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's a nice reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a very humble
nice
guy.
Surprise. No, I was just
really
in touch with reality. I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog. You on.
Yeah, it did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength. Cake. I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know.
I attribute it to my nan. But, yeah, I would say... I think most people probably attribute it to, like, a grandparent or something that they maybe done with, like, their parents when they was growing up. So I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody...
All over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the Tony Award-winning musical Wicked hit the silver screens this weekend, and that's got us thinking, do we like musicals?
Spoiler alert, in my case, no, especially when you try and sing them. The West End generates 3% of the UK's overall economic output, with Hollywood spending millions recreating old and new classics.
So, do you love musicals or do you loathe them? Ross Campbell loves Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which I remember from my childhood.
You liked that one as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I remember going to see that as a kid.
Yeah.
That was, and was Dick Van Dyke in that one as well?
I think he was. He was in most of them, wasn't he? Yeah.
Very probably. That was a good one. Anyway, let's talk to playwright and journalist Emma Burnell and the commentator Ryan Mark Parsons. Good morning to you both. Emma, can I would imagine that you do love a musical, and you have to say, especially with something like Wicked, they do incredibly well.
They do incredibly well, and people do love them, and they're lovely, escapist. Although there are some musicals with some very powerful, moving, sad themes, generally what you get is a lot of songs that move you emotionally and make you feel like you've had a great night out. And what the heck is wrong with that?
Yeah, Ryan, what is wrong with that, you misery guts?
There's so many things wrong with that. I just honestly detest musicals in every single way. I think largely now they're really over commercialized, and you've got these musicals like Frozen or Lion King, these film adaptations have made it into the West End, and they're just rambunctious, they're noisy, they're cheesy. I cringe, I recoil in my seat when I'm sat listening to one of these jukebox musicals like Mamma Mia, and they're just horrendous. Honestly, every single jukebox musical I've seen in the West End is just diabolical, and I think it's about time they end. You look at people like Shakespeare.
Oh, they've disappeared. Oh. I think...
It's the musical gremlin.
Well, I think that's Benny and Bjorn have interfered with our connection. I don't blame them.
We're watching out the musical there. Oh, you're back.
Oh, they're back.
Emma, Ryan is being quite harsh there. I mean, there are lots of things to get angry, but, I mean, there's almost an implication we should ban musicals, they're so bad.
I mean, Ryan is perfectly entitled to his own views. My advice to Ryan would be, don't go to a musical, mate. Like, that's what... There's so much in the West End that you can go to that's more to your taste. Great. But don't tell other people that they're wrong for liking them. That's just snobbery.
You don't have to go, Ryan, do you?
Well, no, but the thing is, they occupy the space in the West End that could be in place of actual theatre. I think it completely undermines the art of theatre. Like I said before, Phantom of the Opera got involved in the video because it is not real theatre. That's my point. And it attracts the worst kind of audience as well. The kind of audience that will bring the whole supermarket into the theatre, rustling away when I'm trying to perhaps watch what's going on the stage and I can't even hear a damn thing because they're eating their Maltesers. And that is why it needs to end as well, because of the people that tend to go.
Yeah, well, but that is snobbery, though, isn't it, Ryan? Because the bottom line with it...
snobbery.
But the bottom line is people want to go. People want to... I mean, these things are packed out. Like the cinemas are packed out with Wicked.
Well, if they want to go and watch something like Wicked or Frozen, then I suggest they go to the cinema and they can make all the noise they want, with the popcorn and the rest of it. But when I'm going to watch a piece of theatre, I think you need to just have a bit more refinement if you're going into the West End. And unfortunately, these kinds of shows, musicals, the ones I've mentioned before, just don't get the right kind of people going.
Emma, we're tarring all musicals with the same brush here. I mean, some of them are quite highbrow.
no.
We're talking about Les Mis earlier on.
Dawn, we're not even talking about musicals. We're talking about people who want to go for a night out in the theatre, or all uncouth, the wrong kind of people. Like, there's a right kind of people who should be allowed to go to the theatre. Give me a break.
To be fair, it's quite expensive to go to the theatre as well.
Well, there are a lot of deals you can get. I would suggest that you look around on some of the websites, but honestly, it is absolutely disgraceful to tell people they're the wrong kind of people to go to the theatre. That is snobbery beyond belief.
Oh, come on. I think you're being very hyperbolic here. Have you not been to the theatre?
You get it about musicals and you get it about panto, but here's the truth of how the theatre industry works, and I know because I work in it. I work in fringe theatre, right? And we have all sorts of fascinating and very interesting things, including some fringe musicals. That's how Six started, above a pub in Islington. There are all sorts of ways that the theatre industry trickles down. Panto pays for what Ryan would consider proper theatre the rest of the year round. This is how the industry works.
Ryan, you're just a snob, mate.
I don't mind. I fully embrace that. I just think we need to be more selective with what we display in the West End, and we could be getting much better productions than what we're seeing at the moment. When I walk through Leicester Square and all of these garish lights and these hideous productions, it's not real theatre, it's not real art. And I think we're also marginalising more cultural shows, something more niche productions and niche storytelling that is in place of these Western-centric shows like Phantom of the Opera and all of these other musicals that have been in the West End for many, many, many years. Let's open our horizons and see other cultural storytelling instead of the same old rubbish that attracts the same old rubbish crowds.
So hold on, so we've got to go...
I would say that the only theatre in Leicester Square is the Hippodrome. So the only thing that Ryan's been seeing is Magic Mike, as far as I can tell. There are plenty of theatres elsewhere in the West End, but that's not in Leicester Square. So it would help if you knew and understood the industry and how it works. But as I say, I work in fringe theatre. Over the last few years, I've seen thousands of fabulous and very challenging and difficult productions, up to and including some that are musicals. Theatre is a diverse world, and it's for, and I cannot stress this enough, everybody, up to and including those terribly uncouth people who love bloody musicals.
I tell you what, you'd snap someone's hand off for a ticket to Magic Mike, Ryan, wouldn't you? I'd put money on it.
Have you been?
No.
So Ryan, certainly not going to a show like that.
Ryan, just quickly, what is your ultimate dream theatre experience then? What would you be seeing?
I would just have a selection criteria for the audience. I mean, number one, you couldn't bring any food into the theatre. I think that's the worst idea. The people that sing along to whatever's going on the stage, you can't sing, so don't sing. Let the actors sing on the stage. Don't eat your dinner at the theatre. That's what I would say initially for the audience members. And also get some real theatre on the stage. None of this cheesy, soporific, detestable, cringeworthy musical rubbish that I've seen all up and down the West End that somehow attracts the worst kind of people that enter London that I've ever seen in my life.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there. Emma Burnell, Ryan Mark Parsons, thank you both very much indeed.
Yes.
I mean,
thank you.
Talk about giving someone enough rope to hang himself.
It's just like... I've got, Ryan sitting in the theatre by himself watching, I don't know, someone reading Tolstoy out on stage, and that's it. That's the level of what he'd like to see at the theatre.
A selection process for who's allowed to go to the theatre is... I mean, God, look, I tell you what, Ryan Mark is entirely entitled to his own view on that. I'm just slightly lost for words.
I'm a bit with him on the food thing, though.
Yeah, well, yeah, food.
No one is that starving they can't get through a 2 or a 3 hour, whether it's a film or a theatre, without eating.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but it's. I tell you what, I did. I'd forgotten I went to see one called Waitress. A few years, 4 or 5 years ago, because a friend of mine was sort of involved with the stuff that was going on with it. So I got a free ticket, so that's why I went.
Oh, right, freebie.
But do you know what? It was brilliant. It was brilliant. But I would say it's back to that line of they'd never appeal to me, but when I go to one, I quite enjoy it.
You know, we're also, we should actually open our minds more, experience more.
Because I tell you what you do appreciate is that the people involved, I mean, set designers and all the rest of it, and the performers are very talented.
Yeah, and I tell you what, they do 2 shows a day. If you're doing a musical, a full-length musical, and you're doing a matinee and that evening show, that is a lot of hard work.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a lot of hard work.
So, yeah.
But it's appreciating this skill. There's loads of you, hundreds of you have messaged in about that debate. I can't read most of them out. This one I can read from John, who says, Ryan, what a turnip. And that's about the politest.
Well, then Thomas says that young lad is a horrible snob. I mean, he said he doesn't mind that.
He doesn't mind being a snob.
Yeah.
I am a bit shocked. I am a bit shocked.
Well, you don't have to go. Phil says Mayfair, 7 Brides and 7 Brothers. I like that. My Fair Lady, I think you mean. Yeah, My Fair Lady and 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. So, lots of you love musicals. There's nothing wrong with it. Phantom of the Opera was phenomenal. So was Claire.
This is an interesting one. A couple of people have got in touch about Shakespeare. Carol's this one I can see here, who says Shakespeare wrote for the working classes.
Yeah.
Now, I would sort of not aware of that as a concept, but I suppose that's true, isn't it?
It was accessible, wasn't it, I think? I don't know. I wasn't around at the time. Just slightly before my time.
Anyway.
Nicholas, Paint Your Wagon with Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood. Oh, we're going back in time now, aren't we?
Helen says, I never usually agree with Emma Burnell, but she's bang on today.
Yeah, Emma does work in theatre, actually. She's a very successful show out recently, so...
JD 1955 says, Steve wouldn't go to the theatre. He's too mean to buy a ticket.
Which brings me nicely into... Yeah. Oh, God, you've disappeared. Your name's Scrooge. Love Scrooge. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, So to use it too mean to go to the theatre, and Scrooge was notorious.
Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, yeah. Well, Scrooge was a musical film.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was called Scrooge.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. Right, anyway, we're going to just calm ourselves down with a quick sing-song, and then we're back with the papers in just a minute.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles.
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the 2nd largest ocean in the world, and the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I think the 2 of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets. So one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home, and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions, and we stood there at my porch and went, Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
GoFundMe
we've got
page social
yet?
media platforms at the Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy. is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What time is it? 8:47 morning to you.
No idea. No idea anymore.
Frankie says, I may not agree with Ryan Mark's views on musical theatre, but I love his audacity. He's no snowflake.
Yeah, well,
ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
And Anne says, Ryan's winding you all up. Love him. I don't think he is winding us up.
I genuinely don't think he cares, and why not? Look, this show is about opinions, and, you know, it's... Jenny says, I think your guest, Ryan, is alienating 2/3 of the nation, very snobby and totally out of touch. Theatre is perfectly capable of sorting out hits and flops without Ryan.
Stavros Papadopoulos says, love the musical arts critic. I don't know which one you're referring to there. Great that this show is free speech.
Exactly.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And Jay says, Ryan the theatre snob was fantastic. More of him, please. So there you go. Well,
it was, look, it's what
he's
it's
entitled
about.
to his view.
Yeah, of course he is. No, absolutely.
Let's see if Duncan Barks and Candice Holdsworth have got any views that we're going to be talking about for the next hour. Yeah. Morning, you two. Let's start with the Mail, should we, Duncan? Because the private sector is shrinking after the budget.
It is, and this is the ongoing fallout from the budget. And, I mean, it is fascinating to watch all of this unravel. And what we have on the front page of the Mail is the private sector shrinking after the budget. And basically, anyone who's involved in the small business, anyone who's trying to earn a crust by running a company, just going, this budget is effectively anti-business. And there are a number of reasons for this. You know, it was outlined that the national insurance contribution made by employers was going to increase. We also have the minimum wage going up as well. It wasn't announced in the budget, but we also had the employment rights bill. So all of that makes it remarkably challenging if you're a small business to continue to operate in the way you have been operating. And you've got to look at the sectors that have been hit by this. I mean, every sector will be hit by this if it's a private sector business. However, a couple of the areas that are really highlighted, one is hospitality. So, you know, we have a real impact on British pubs. The other is the care sector as well, you know, where you have care home operators going, the increase in minimum wage, the increase in the national insurance contributions I have to make means I will have to make care workers redundant. And who's going to pick up the tab on that? Ultimately, it's going to be the NHS. Yeah. So, you know, it's going to impact a different area.
Well, hospices are being really badly hit by this.
Yeah. GP surgeries are being hit by it because, effectively, they're private businesses as well. My biggest fear is the hospitality sector, and all over the newspapers today, you've got people from UK hospitality going, you know, this is going to have such a negative impact on us, and it's going to happen in a number of different ways. One, we're going to have to see pubs closing because you just can't make it viable anymore, or we're going to have to sack staff, and or we're going to have to pass on the increased cost to the customer. So the stuff on your menu is going to go up. You know, we laughingly had a pint, a penny off a pint in the budget announced, but now you've got pub operators going, we're going to have to increase the price of a pint.
Didn't you find that patronising guff as well? I mean, it's like, oh, we're all going to give you a penny off your pint in the pub. So give them a little bit and they'll be happy.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just like you're kind of getting the worst of all worlds. So, I mean, in businesses which are very labour intensive, where a huge part of their cost is on paying salaries, like hospitality. I mean, they're going to really bear the brunt of it. And then there's the inflationary aspect of it as well. Because what do? They either cut down on employment or they raise prices or a mixture of the two. That's just the economic reality.
There's a fundamental issue here that this government, this cabinet, does not understand business because none of them have ever run a small business.
Well, they don't seem to understand it at the moment, do they? I'll tell you what else they don't understand, Candice, is farming. The Times has an interview with Jeremy Clarkson.
Yes.
This most unlikely spokesperson for farmers.
Yeah, so this is it. So this is this interesting thing. So this is an article on The Times, a big interview with Jeremy Clarkson and how he sort of emerged as is this sort of advocate for rural life and farmers. And a lot of people have speculated, is he kind of our Elon Musk? So this person who comes from outside of politics in a time when people are very disillusioned with politicians and sort of argues for a cause and makes it very popular.
Maybe. He does say, I don't want to be a spokesman for farmers because, you know, I'm not a farmer, I'm a journalist at heart. And obviously he's got independent financial streams to support him, unlike a lot of farmers out there who really are going to be struggling.
They are. I was in Whitehall on Tuesday as part of the farmers' protest. I was interviewing farmers and some of the stories are heartbreaking. And again, it just makes me wonder whether or not this government have properly thought about the consequences of their actions. If you put the inheritance tax of 20% on farms valued at £1 million plus, that is money that a lot of farmers can't find because they're asset rich, they're not cash rich.
No, they're cash poor.
They're cash poor.
Yeah.
And what will happen, in order to pay that, they will have to sell the land. The land won't necessarily be bought by other farmers. It'll either be, you know, bought by businesses who want to stick solar panels on there or houses or whatever. But what that means is it jeopardises our food security because there's less farming going on.
Yeah. It's just. I was very intrigued by Lord Lloyd Webber turning up and what he said, which, I mean, again, not someone you think was particularly unnecessarily across all of this sort of thing. And what he said was very powerful to GB News. Talking of money, let's go from this to the ridiculous, should we, Candice? In the Times, a £500 dress delivered to your door in an hour.
Yes, so apparently, this is a story in the Times, Deliveroo is now getting into fast fashion, where they will be delivering dresses to your door. They've partnered up with this company called Her, which specialises in, like, sort of high-end rentals. So instead of spending £500 on a dress, you just rent it for a little while. Now you can get it super fast. What I think is really sad, though, is people are losing the experience of going to the shop, trying things on. I did this the other day with a friend of mine. I haven't done it in ages, and it was wonderful. I think, though, if things are going to start going this way, I think the only way that retail can compete is by making it a much better experience. I mean, that's the only way they can compete with the ease of being able to get clothes to your front door.
Yeah, I think it's a real shame. I'm not a big fan of all this Deliveroo and Uber food.
See, as someone who hates shopping for clothes, I think this is brilliant. But I noticed reading the piece, it's only about dresses, so I'm not quite in the market for a dress yet. But, you know, at some point... You never know. You never know.
But here's one for you then. Would you, I mean, like that fine jacket you're wearing now, would you have bought that without trying it on?
Quite happily. I haven't got the patience or the stamina or the willpower to stand around shops trying stuff on. And I don't like going into changing rooms and taking my trousers off.
No.
Thank you.
But sometimes it just has to be done.
I know. I mean, I've ordered so many things that don't fit online.
It is, and
they arrive.
You can send them back, can't you? That's the beauty of it. You try them on, and if not, you put it back in the bag, you have the reverse label, you take it down to the post
But the other thing, size is different. All shops have different sizes. I mean, it's really...
Yes, you have to look at the comments underneath when people say this didn't fit at all, size up, basically.
That's true.
Right, on that note...
Candice Duncan, thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, time to have a look at the weather and what's going to happen with Storm Bert.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting, coupled with the heavy rain, could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south. Gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday, but overall a wet and windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night. So this evening, single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning, probably in double digits. And some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland. Some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British Give on Demand. Good luck.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
This is The Guardian. They've announced they will no longer post content on Elon Musk's social media platform X, or as it's still known by everybody, Twitter. So they made an announcement to readers. I don't know why they have to announce it. It's like they'd announced they're leaving a party. And why? Oh, I'm leaving the party because there's pineapple in the potato salad and the sangria is warm. I don't know, like, just go. But they said they consider the benefits of being on the platform were now outweighed by the negatives, citing the often disturbing content and misinformation found on it. But there's going to be a bit less now because The Guardian's not going to be on it. Some of the far-right conspiracy theories that they talk about are now just like 50% of the time they come true. Look at Joe Biden's cognitive decline. That was a far-right conspiracy theory, and then it came true.
They linked to a Zoe Williams article. It was a hyperlink from that exact phrase, far-right conspiracy theories, which you've written a whole article about how dangerous X was now, what a slimy pit of disinformation. And one of the examples she gave was the far-right conspiracy theory that Algerian boxer was actually intersex, which is absolutely... And it was like, she was like, sued, Elon Musk was named in the libel trial.
If you're really bothered about what X is like, spend more time tweeting back, disagreeing with people, get stuck into the argument.
They could appoint a specific ex-correspondent, couldn't they? They don't have to have the whole newspaper there. It could just be their champion.
The Guardian were worried about misinformation that influences elections. They should have left in 2020 when Twitter, under its previous owners, colluded with the Democrat governments, colluded with executive branches of the government to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story. It was classed as fake news. It was actually completely valid and true. And if they want to change people's minds and, make everybody better and more socialist, surely the people like me who are on Twitter are the ones they need to convince. So stay on Twitter and convince me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. Stock up on food and water as Storm Bert sweeps across the UK.
That's as police warn against road travel in many parts of the country.
Well, Ireland has a rare red weather warning, plenty of yellow and amber over here. Here's what you can expect throughout the day.
Heavy snow, heavy rain, strong winds. Storm Bert is here and it's causing different problems across different parts of the UK. There are a number of Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for all the details.
And budget blues. The impact of Labour's tax rise is evident as new figures reveal the economy stagnating and business are losing confidence in the government.
Now, farmers have been out in force this week from right across the United Kingdom, angry at the changes to inheritance tax. The big question is, are the government listening? Well, it's wait to see on that one, because it doesn't look like they are at the moment.
No.
It has just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Breakfast, and I hope you're having a lovely weekend out there.
Never known anyone who is supposedly so organised and yet so disorganised as Ms. Neeson. She brings piles and piles of paper in.
I do my research. I've got folders. I do folders. But I've lost the one bit of paper that I actually need. And I am convinced the horrid boy next to him. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Thank you. Colour-coordinated folders. But I've lost the one bit of paper that I really need.
And she keeps saying, that's mine. This isn't. It's got my writing on it.
Has nicked it. You remember at school, and there was one kid in the class that was really irritating.
Here we
did their homework on time and never helped you out. Well.
What, do you want to read my notes?
Grown up into Stephen Dixon.
Do you want to read my notes?
Can't read that writing.
No, well, you can't have them.
What does that even say?
It says protect small family farms, 500 a year.
You needed to write that down?
No, it was a quote. It's a quote from Rachel Reeves when she announced the budget. She said they were bringing in this move to protect small family farms.
Yeah.
Which I was going to put to the farmer, but ran out of time.
She also said she was going to deliver the best budget ever.
Best one ever.
And she was protecting working people, and she was going to be transparent, and she was an economist.
Yeah, but you...
Oh, I went there.
Yeah, but you're mocking me for writing down quotes now.
Sorry.
You're a horrible, horrible woman.
I am that bad girl at the back of the class.
Bad girl.
You're flicking things at the back of your head.
You've come in your saucy outfit.
Oh, God.
And
Thank you very much. Oh, and Claire, thank you very much for saying that you like the outfit, but I just need to sort the collar out. I sorted it out. Thank you very much, Claire.
Loads of you, actually, the inbox has gone mad saying you look lovely today. And if you're listening on the radio, she's a vision in purple. Lilac. Lilac.
It's like a sort of like a purpley colour. It's sort of like...
Well, lilac is.
Quality Street colour. You know, last year I did the Quality Street...
Like the big purple
challenge,
one, aren't you?
The big purple one, yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely nutty on the inside.
Oh, and by the way, I just want to respond to the other one about taking glasses on and off.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's a reason I do that. It's because I need to read things.
Yeah.
Well, you do it as well.
Yeah, but that. I need my glasses on all the time. The issue with these, and I need to go back to Specsavers, is that they keep slipping off.
Yeah.
And they are slipping off.
You look quite cute without glasses.
Well, I always used to wear contacts, but I've got dodgy eyes, and so I reached a point where I can't get contacts in my prescription now.
Yeah.
So
you
I
look
have to
slightly more intelligent with them.
Oh, well.
Only slightly.
Looks can be deceiving.
Very. And I haven't got my glasses on to look at you for that.
Jane's been in touch. Hi, Jane. Says Ryan Mark Parsons,
oh, God, that's funny.
is absolutely right on musicals. I echo everything he says, basically saying musicals are awful and they attract awful people. Awful people who go to musicals. He's not a snob. He just has class and taste, unlike the majority of people who now infiltrate West End theatre.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is snobbery. Christine says, well, I didn't think I would agree with Emma Burnell, who's the other half of the debate and works in theatre and is very good at it, I have to say. However, after listening to Ryan on musicals, I am with her 100% on this one. For example, my granddaughters were taken to see Frozen and they loved it. They now think Elsa is real. Ryan is the biggest snob. Elsa is real, isn't she?
I've never actually seen it. I don't know.
You know, I watched it once.
Let it go, let it go.
Yeah, it's great. I watched it once at Christmas, and I've got a sister as well. It's quite emotional.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did you cry?
A little bit. Oh. I might have been slightly hungover.
I thought you were harder than that, Dawn. You're meant to be hard as nails. You're an old hack. Well, I didn't...
Hack. Yeah, he did say hack, not hag, just in case anyone is troubling with their hearing this morning. Hack. Thank you very much. I'm a
hag.
Very...
Can you imagine me saying that on air? I mean, really, come on.
Yes, I can. You say it off air all the time.
No, that's
any case. What about Bert?
Oh,
How's
dear.
Bert doing?
Bert is bringing misery. I hate to say. He's already... We say he's on the way. I mean, he's certainly hit Northern Ireland and Ireland at the moment. Heavy rain, strong winds, disruptive snow, all expected.
It's expected to hit this morning, as we've already said, it's already hit Ireland, where there is a rare red weather warning. That's a tongue twister. But even over here, we've got lots of yellow weather warnings. And we have now Doogie Beattie. Doogie, who is in Ireland for us, Northern Ireland.
It's brightened up, Doogie.
Doogie is looking quite cheerful.
Well, we are that much further north than you, so it gets lighter here a little bit later. But yeah, Dawn, I think I'd have got on with you in school, because you've kept me hanging about here for 5 minutes, getting soaked. But yeah, the storm, the gusts have actually died down here from just about an hour ago. We're now at the seafront here at Ballywalter in County Down. Where earlier on this morning I could hardly even stand with the gusts that were coming. About 3 o'clock this morning we had heavy driving snow into Northern Ireland, and then came this rain, and it's not sleet, it is just freezing cold rain, and it's flooded the roads, brought down trees. And when you're out and about driving, be very aware that underneath that water on the roads is still ice underneath it. I caught the car 2 or 3 times on the way down in it, and you could tell that the car was sliding. It wasn't aquaplaning, it was wanting to go every other shape. So it is a really, really strange storm because it has all 3 elements. It has snow, it has driving rain, and it has wind in behind it. And the salt water here is actually cutting the eyes out of me as we stand here. But we've had trees down, which has caused problems with power in some areas, getting about on the roads. And you can see behind me there, the sea, the white horses in it has started to calm down. Now that could either be that we're in the eye of the storm and it's passing through where it goes quite quiet and then picks up again, or that this storm is now moving off towards the north of England, Scotland, and down in towards Yorkshire. But from Northern Ireland this morning, I can tell you it is been very, very disruptive, and hopefully we are told that those winds will start to die down substantially by midday today.
Doogie, there is lots of love in the room coming in from viewers for you today, saying well done, and they hope you get in and get a nice cup of tea somewhere warm and dry quite soon.
Well, yeah, that's exactly where I'm heading to now, the nearest cafe, I can assure you, to try and get a bit warm before I'm back on in the next hour. And we'll be heading along the County Down coast towards Belfast to see what sort of damage is done there and what the road conditions is like. But seriously, Don, anybody this morning that is out and about, please, please be very careful of that standing water, because the ice that was here on Friday, I mean, it snowed quite a bit in Northern Ireland last week. It never really defrosted. And last night, and even now, this is actually freezing cold rain. And you can imagine the roads aren't thawing out.
Yeah, it is a very good warning. Unless you're emergency services or an absolute lunatic journalist, don't go out in that today. Good to see you, Doogie, as always. I'm glad you're having a lovely day.
Thanks, Doogie.
I mean, it's crazy. Got to say, for some people have got in touch saying, why have you sent him out there? Journalists weirdly love this sort of thing.
It is his job.
People love it. We love getting out and stuff like that. Well, I used to, not anymore.
No, not at your age, love, no. Oh,
but I mean, he loves it. But I mean, it's grim. So if you don't have to go out, just don't today.
By the way, Sharon, good morning, Sharon. Please stop picking on Stephen, bless him.
Yes, thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Sharon. She's a very nasty lady.
Is that your Auntie Sharon?
No, I have got an Auntie Sharon, though. Weirdly, but that's not her. All right, let's get more on the weather with meteorologist Tamsin Green. Hi, Tamsin. I'll tell you what, we've talked about all of this. It's quite striking talking to Doogie, and especially in the last hour when it was very blustery as well, because it actually brings into focus just how grim this storm can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a multi-hazardous event, as we said before. You know, it's bringing heavy rain, heavy snow, strong winds. With that, we're going to be seeing risks of flooding, large waves on the coast. So it's really bringing everything but the kitchen sink, this storm.
Is that unusual? I mean, normally we have sort of like wind and rain, or we have snow, but this really has got every single element of it.
Yeah, well, in essence, the storm, you know, it's noteworthy for sure, but it is just a regular Atlantic low pressure system that's moved in. But the reason that it's bringing so many different impacts to different regions is because of the weather we had before. We had that deep cold in place across the UK and Ireland. So that milder air has moved in, all of that moist air has moved in, that's bumped into the colder air ahead. And that's why we've had snow in the north, but then heavy rain further south, strong winds, which is pretty common with a deep area of low pressure as well. So yeah, it's primarily because of the cold weather we already had in place before, which is not too rare. You know, it's not uncommon this time of year. Obviously, the cold that we had before was unseasonably cold. The temperatures were lower than average for the time of year, but it's not a particularly rare storm. It is obviously noteworthy, as I said, though.
It's meant to sort of blow out a little bit, or at least blow away from us by the end of tomorrow, isn't it? But what does that mean for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week?
Yeah, so in its wake, it's definitely getting milder. So we're going to be seeing temperatures on the rise, as we already are seeing, which is a good thing if you don't like the cold. We will be seeing more showers, spells of rain, particularly further west, maybe further south as well. There are then signs that we could see high pressure build back in, possibly seeing something colder and drier once again, sort of as we head into early December as well. But for the meantime, Bert's out the way, we've got Margaret, and still the risk of some showers or spells of rain at times.
Tamsin, I know you all hate answering this kind of question
here we
because
go.
you can't do it, but come on.
You know what it is.
Give
You
us
know
some
what it is.
optimism. Is it looking good for Santa and a white Christmas?
I cannot answer that at this stage.
Quite right, Tamsin.
As a meteorologist, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't guarantee that at this point. But, you know, maybe later down the line when we see things lining up in the weather models, then I can come back and give you an answer on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you for sticking to your guns, Tamsin. She's a very cruel woman.
Just lie to me, Tamsin. I want a white Christmas.
All right, good to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Tamsin.
much
Thank
indeed.
you.
She does it with everybody.
What?
They can't tell yet.
I know they can't. That's why I ask them.
Oh, you're
Is that
so
mean?
horrid. Yeah.
Oh, OK. So I'm not just horrid to you. Right.
No,
Let's really cheer people up, shall we?
Oh, should we?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, this is where I'm just trying to find me notes that I make.
Right, OK. Who was moaning about being organised?
Here we go,
Yep.
because, as we've heard many times from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, growth is this government's #1 priority. We heard all of that, didn't we? Before the election, before the budget, during the budget, we provided stable foundations that businesses need for growth, and we're getting on with delivering that mission.
Yes.
Sounds positive.
Yes.
However, Britain's economy is stagnating and the private sector is shrinking following the budget.
Who'd have thunk? That's according to new data, not just us, released by economists who warn that tax rises are damaging confidence.
Well, it's not good for the money markets either. The pound dropped to its lowest level against the dollar since May yesterday.
But despite this, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has reiterated her claim that the budget provides stable foundations for growth.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, who's in Westminster. I mean, she just won't budge on this, will she?
She won't budge on this. We've seen this from Rachel Reeves before. Once she has decided on a particular course of action, she is very determined to stick to it. If you cast your minds back to the winter fuel payment fiasco, she said that she would be scrapping winter fuel payments for all but the poorest pensioners. There was an enormous backlash, but she has stuck to her guns. This time round, she appears to be doing the same thing. The problem for Labour is that over the course of the general election campaign, they sort of painted themselves into a corner. They promised that they wouldn't raise taxes on working people. Now, they didn't define exactly what that meant. Then after the election, Rachel Reeves decided that she did need to raise some taxes, but without being able to raise national insurance, VAT or income tax, which she defined as the 3 taxes on working people, her options were limited. What she decided to do in the budget was to raise national insurance on employers, but not on employees. Now, that's a technicality, really. I mean, you can say that that's not raising taxes on working people, but it doesn't take a top economist to work out that if you raise national insurance tax on employers, that is going to filter down to employees. Instead of giving their workers a pay rise, employers will just have to raise the national insurance. And that is exactly what is happening. Employers ready for this national insurance rise in April are making swathes of cuts to their businesses. They simply cannot afford, particularly those businesses which run on very fine margins. So businesses which don't make huge amounts of profit, local retailers, care homes, for example. Instead of raising taxes on national insurance, they're choosing just to get rid of staff altogether. Now, that has an obvious effect on ordinary people, on ordinary families. Unemployment is beginning to tick up, but it also has an effect on the economy overall. The private sector has shrunk. It's now at its smallest for 13 months, and we've seen the pound drop against the dollar. Rachel Reeves is arguing that what her philosophy is that you have to make these changes now. You have to plug that black hole she keeps talking about in public finances, and once you've done that, then you've sort of set the good groundwork for growth in the future. Other economists argue that what she should be doing now is focusing on growth right this moment, and perhaps that this budget hasn't quite achieved that, but we'll have to wait to find out for sure.
Olivia, thank you very much. I thought the point of having a mind was to be able to change it.
Yes.
Not Olivia, Rachel Reeves we're talking about now.
But it does make you look politically very weak.
It does, and we feel
which is
let down.
But it's partly our fault, I think, or, media fault, newspapers and all the rest of it, that the minute a politician changes their mind, the minute a policy is reversed, it's viewed as weak and falling back. But actually, what we want them to do is change their mind.
Yeah, is be honest. It's, I get that Keir Starmer, it's flip-flopping. So with the farmers, with the winter fuel payments for pensioners, neither of which add up financially, by the way. I mean, they just don't make sense financially.
No, they don't make sense financially.
I mean, the first part of the show, we were talking about raising £500 million from farmers, but we're also giving £520 million to foreign farmers. And that's just enough to fund the NHS for one day. I have to say, and I don't know how you feel about this, but it's a little bit about the politics of envy going on here as well with this Labour government.
See, you said that to me before. I don't know if I agree
well, you know
with
what made me a
that.
bit twitchy? Someone who was a big supporter, I don't think it was a Labour politician, but they used the phrase that farmers are hoarding British countryside. And I thought, well...
Well, that's a term which is
they're growing
worrying.
food for us, basically.
Yeah.
That worried me. It's the language.
Yeah, that language is worrying, but I don't know if generally they're working on the politics of envy in that way. I think that would be... If they'd slapped 50p on those earning... an extra 5p on income tax for those earning over a certain amount, that could be possibly viewed as politics of envy. I don't know, but then why aren't they doing more for the Amazons and of this world to change those tax burdens that they're not breaking the law.
Of course not.
But maybe that tax burden could be shifted there that would bring in a lot of money.
Because the other issue with this, isn't it, the very wealthy. I mean, the very wealthy that could afford to pay more taxes, they're also wealthy enough to get away with accountants, offshore funds, all of these things that ordinary working people can't do.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, but it just doesn't feel like we're getting a straight answer to anything. We're used to not getting straight answers from politicians, whatever party they're from.
Yeah.
But on this, we actually do need some straight answers, and we're just not getting them. And just repeating the same old mantra doesn't get you anywhere, does it?
With the winter fuel payment, I mean, it was a Tory idea. They thought about it. They were honest about thinking about it. And this isn't in party political point, but they were honest. They said, we are thinking about it, and then they thought, no, it doesn't work.
And then it's gone and happened anyway. It's like... Of all the people to target, really, pensioners are not the people to target.
Which brings me back to, we haven't had time to read many out, but please do get in touch because we are coming back to this subject throughout the day on GB News. Are you a pensioner? Are you suffering? Even if you're not a pensioner, are you worried about how you're going to pay your fuel bills this winter? gbnews.com/your say. We're trying to give as many of you a voice as possible about how worried you are. We've already had some real horror stories over the past couple of days about this, but please, we are going to try and do our best to get your voices heard by the people that can hopefully do something about it.
Will they do anything, though? I don't know. Anyway, none of this is helped by the weather at the moment, which is cold and grim and wet and snowy. Let's get all the details for you.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well, particularly around coast in the west, along the south coast, but also at times along parts of the east coast. Now, as the storm system moves in, it'll be bringing milder air, so things really warming up compared to recent days across the south. Still pretty cold for most of the day across Scotland and northern England, but even here the milder air is eventually pushing in. That means the snow will be short-lived. Quite heavy through this morning into the early afternoon, but then easing off and turning back to rain. But that snow melting coupled with the heavy rain could cause some flooding. The rain extending into northern Scotland by this evening. Elsewhere across Scotland actually turning a little bit drier. A bit dry this afternoon too for Northern Ireland. But here's the milder air. Temperatures in double figures across much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland by this evening. But although it will be milder, it will be wet and windy for many. Further pulses of rain coming in across the south. Gusty winds also. It does calm down a little bit in some places as we head into Sunday, but overall a wet and windy night, but a very, very mild night. Temperatures actually rising through the night. So this evening, single figures across Scotland. By tomorrow morning, probably in double digits, and some parts of the south start tomorrow in the teens. So a very mild start, but still very wet and windy. It does turn brighter across Scotland, some sunny spells here and for Northern Ireland. Showers coming into the northwest. The rain easing in parts of England and Wales too, but warnings remain in place for wind and rain, especially in southern parts of England. Expect some disruption through the course of this weekend thanks to Storm Bert. It's bringing lots of different hazards across different parts of the UK at different times. Check the Met Office website for the warning details.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, still to come for you, a busy week for farmers, of course. We're going to be looking back at what's happened this week and talking to a farmer about what could be happening next.
Yeah. Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Restaurant St. Bart's executive head chef Johnny Crowe creates ramen with a British twist, using only the finest UK-sourced produce. As the only restaurant in London to hold both a Michelin star and a green Michelin star, St. Bart's emphasises sustainability and the diversity of British ingredients. Johnny joins me now. Johnny, congratulations on having these 2 Michelins. How do you get a Michelin green star?
Probably a better question for the inspectors, but I mean, I think it's down to a lot of hard work.
What hoops do you have to go through?
So I think it's working every day on it. The sustainability isn't something that you just achieve and then therefore you have it and you can sort of relax. It's about every day trying to be better, trying to make a restaurant and a business that is overly sustainable.
So what things do you do to make it sustainable?
So one of the main things that we've really tried to do is focusing on British produce, and actually, you know, part of that is about sustainability and food miles. A massive part of it for us was also about sort of helping the British economy and the farming economy and our fisheries as well. But yeah, no, the idea...
You have a lot of farms near St. Bart's, which is in the heart of the City of London.
Well, funnily enough, there's an amazing collective called Shrub Provisions, who we use a hell of a lot, who work with farmers all around East Sussex. So it makes a difference from flying it in from Kenya or somewhere else like that. But no, like a big part of it was, one, using British produce to cut down on food miles, but also helping sustain our farming industry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9:25, so we were just saying in the break, we should, because we've been talking about musicals all morning, we should choose GB News the musical. It would be a hit.
Yes.
It would be a hit.
Yeah, I'm not taking any part in this.
Who would
because
play you?
I can't sing at all. But we were also singing I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts, which, do you remember that out there? Is that an old school thing?
Big one, small one, some as big as your head.
Some as big as your head. Singing, it was from the old school musical.
Well, you're like a Cockney, aren't you?
Cockney, yes. And Stephen's just confessed he doesn't like anyone from south of Nottingham.
South of Nottingham, Southerners now, which is just about everyone who works here.
And I get told off by people for having a go at you.
Oh yes, yes. Someone said, "Dawn, would you please stop talking over Stephen?"
Did I?
You talk too much.
Do I?
I can't find who it was now, but absolutely. Thanks, Ellie, for sending that in.
Right, get on with it then, carry on.
Right. Actually, on to serious matter, because we are talking about farmers and thousands descended on London this week to protest over the government's plan to tax them at the end of their lives.
Yeah. With support from Jeremy Clarkson and Andrew Lloyd Webber, farmers came from all 4 nations of the UK.
Well, Will Hollis was there and has the story.
A workforce united by fear for their way of life and families' future. This was the week the countryside came to the capital. By first light, coachloads of farmers left rural roads lining the motorway.
Farming is such an important industry and margins are already squeezed so tight that to put other taxes on our business would just, many businesses would just go under.
I see the budget as an attack on our industry and I'm coming to London to stand up for it.
We want to be able to plan for the future and make long-term investments, and this could really affect that.
At the heart of Britain's democracy, they came in their thousands. Their protest against inheritance tax dominating the agenda. In the autumn budget, the Chancellor announced plans to tax farmers on assets worth over £1 million when they die. For decades, they had been exempt.
From April 2026, the first £1 million of combined business and agricultural assets will continue to attract no inheritance tax at all. But for assets over £1 million, inheritance tax will apply. This will ensure that we continue to protect small family farms.
The government says only 500 farms a year will be affected as they target the wealthiest landowners. The National Farmers Union says the tax will be crippling for families. Tom Bradshaw is president of the NFU.
There will be farms that end up having to sell the whole farm because the business is no longer viable on the back of this tax.
Within weeks of the budget, farmers had arrived at the government's doorstep. Some to meet with MPs, others rallied by farming's unlikely leader, Jeremy Clarkson.
I beg of the government to be big, to accept that this was rushed through, it wasn't thought out, and it's a mistake.
Britain's field hands rubbing shoulders with its most famous sons, including Andrew Lloyd Webber.
In the longer term, what will happen is they'll all be bought by probably foreigners, outsiders, people who are not buying it for the love of the countryside. They're buying it purely as a long-term investment.
Young and old, generations standing together.
We took the kids out of school for the day because we thought it was important. We've got to just show them that this is wrong, you know. Some things, it's not bad to admit they're wrong, change it around.
Family farms are what have provided food for England through 2 world wars and up to now, so it's a vital part of our economy.
Farmers are refusing to back down. The government won't budge either. This protest is just a taste from the nation's food producers. Will Hollis, GB News.
Well, let's head to Norfolk and talk to farmer Simon Dan. Simon, good to see you this morning. Look, farmers have had their say in all of this. Do you get any sense at all that the government is listening?
There is mention of a U-turn. There is one, and these are only my opinions, the one biggest problem is that where is food security on the government's radar? I think it is so low, if non-existent. We need to realise that we produce so little of our food in this country. If we don't secure it a little bit more for the future, we can live without operations in hospital. We can live without solar panels, but we can't live without food. And there was, in the Farmers Weekly only last week, a major headline saying we've imported more cereal than ever before because we're not self-sufficient. So where is this going to lead us?
So that's the question. I mean, you know, a huge support during the week, a huge support from our viewers and listeners today, Simon. But what is the end game here? If the government don't take any notice and don't make a U-turn, or at least make tweaks to what they're trying to introduce, how far do farmers take it?
Well, we're not quite as militant as the French farmers yet. We're certainly a far fewer percentage of the population in the UK compared to France. I think the French farmers, because they're generally smaller, are about 10 to 12%, and we're probably 1 to 2%. And I can see, we had a very good turnout in London. Sadly, I wasn't there, but, 20,000 plus is of 70,000 farmers in the UK is a very good representation. And these are people, not just farmers, but people involved in the industry that are worried about their livelihood, which I totally understand.
I mean, there has been talk of, stopping supply routes, in effect going on strike as best as farmers can. I mean, but there's a huge issue with that, isn't there? That what the government doesn't seem to realise, you may be asset rich, but you are cash poor. And so if farmers stop supplying food, it's going to really cost you.
Yes, and I don't think that's the wish of any farmer, but if that's what we've got to do to make the government sit up and realise that we are an important part of the nation, I think it's got to be done.
And Simon, we've had some fairly, incredibly worrying stories about the mental health effect that this is having on farmers. We know that the farming industry is a very lonely industry to be involved in, and mental health isn't great at the best of times. Can you give us any examples of the pressure that many of, the farming community feel under with this inheritance tax?
And you're quite right. Mental pressure, I suffer far more stress, and I've spoken to a lot more farmers of similar age that they have diversified. Their businesses have got bigger. Smaller farms have disappeared, and some farms have taken farming those smaller farms. So consequently, machinery's got more expensive. You've got to have more acres to justify this machine, and it's a vicious treadmill. And with it comes more and more stress at the end of the day. And it's certainly not enjoyable.
Now, what's the impact if as has been suggested, this leaves the door open, doesn't it, for bigger businesses to come in and say, right, we'll buy your farm, we'll buy your land, and either farm it or not, or do whatever with it. But they're not going to necessarily want to buy the smaller farms, are they? And I wonder if that ultimately is going to leave these family farmers with just devalued businesses.
Yes, I think it will. And, I know of several instances where there's small blocks of land that are up for sale that people now, particularly since what's happened in the last couple of months, people are not interested, and the value of that land is going to drop. People don't want to buy it. Why should they tie a bigger millstone around the neck? And, if the value of land drops considerably, the investors will not be there. And the likes of Mr. Dyson, who's done a brilliant job for farming, but he's had the money to be able to do it. But I don't think these investors are going to be quite as keen as they used to be to buy tranches of land.
Will you be able to carry on farming, Simon?
I hope so. I've got family beneath me. I've got a son very much involved in the dairy business. I've got 2 daughters. We've diversified into ice cream. And I hope, yes, that in another couple of generations' time, it will continue.
Wow, got to keep your fingers crossed. Simon, good to see you.
Best of luck, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. It's all dairy farming up where I'm from, and it's, honestly, I just love it. I love it. There's something about just seeing those herds.
It's just an incredibly hard lifestyle, though. It's not like you can take days off. I mean, whether you're dairy farming or any sort of livestock or arable farming, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Every day of the year. It's not like, it's Christmas Day, I'm not going to bother milking the cows today.
No.
And, as Jeremy Clarkson says in his interview today, he goes, well, I understand why the Westminster bubble don't think about farmers. When I lived in London, I didn't think about farming. It's only since he's been running Diddley Squat, his farm, that he realises the pressure just to make a tiny amount of profit.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for not a lot of pay, but people do it because it's in the blood.
Yes.
And because they love what they do. They love working with the land, and that is a reward in and of itself in some cases.
Yeah.
But it's really hard work.
Yeah, really.
And if you're going to say, well, you can't pass it on to your kids unless your kids can find in excess of £200,000 to give to the government.
Which means they have to sell chunks of the farm off, which will be brought by possibly... This happened in Australia and China, where we're buying huge chunks of Australian land up that were once family farms, now owned by China. Is that what we want for our country?
Well, it just means you can't... I mean, it will stop family farming in its tracks.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
For, what, 520 million?
Not even that.
One day of the NHS?
Yeah, I just don't think it's been thought through.
No.
As they've got to have the bottle to say, actually, no, this was a mistake. We're not going to do.
Yeah.
They wouldn't scrap it altogether, but maybe they'll say, 5 million is the threshold.
A lot of the farmers we've spoken to have been quite reasonable about this. Like, there is an issue here, there may be a way this can work, but you need to talk to us and it needs tweaking. But they're just not even listening to that.
No, not yet. Maybe something's going on behind the scenes. Sort of live in hope, ever the optimist, but I really, you just don't know, do you? Right, anyway, look, enough of that. Let's talk money for you, actually, because it's our biggest and best British giveaway.
And it's your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. Yeah, Rachel Reeves can't get her hands on it. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. And here's how you get that chance to win it.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Yes, good luck, indeed. Yeah, I really want someone deserving to win that.
Oh, well, there's plenty of people out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I was just flicking through the views just to... fascinating stuff. There's plenty I can't read out at the moment. But,
but lots of you are getting
here we go. Brenda. I'm a pensioner and I'm dreading the heating bills as winter's come so early, it seems. We're going to have to budget to cover that. I hope Starmer Reeves and the MPs are pleased with themselves for what they've done to the elderly of this country.
Yeah.
They won't be scared of putting their heating on.
Well, Rachel Reeves, £165,000 a year, and in her second home, we, pensioners potentially, if you still pay tax, pay for her heating allowance. Good luck. Well, good luck with winning the money in any case, absolutely.
Yes.
£50,000, yours tax-free.
Right, could you be due thousands of pounds in compensation? Well, possibly. We'll tell you why next.
Interesting one.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Her name is synonymous with fashion. Karen Millen, the high street designer whose dresses have been worn by some of the world's most famous women, including the Princess of Wales.
Yes, but in a recent Daily Mail interview conducted by our showbiz juggernaut, as I call her, Steph Tetchy, 63-year-old Karen confessed she isn't immune from worries about her appearance.
Well, this summer, Karen took the plunge with a £35,000 facelift using the very latest surgical techniques. Now, to hear more of her story, we're delighted to be joined by Karen herself and consultant plastic surgeon Dr. Tunç Tiryaki, co-founder of the London Regenerative Institute. So, how did you two get together?
That was a meeting at the Parliament, wasn't it?
It was, actually, through mutual friends, really.
So you already knew of Tunç and you knew his expertise. How did you come to the decision to kind of go ahead with this? I was reading the Mail article and apparently one day you looked in the mirror. And I've heard this story so many times before,
I know,
from not least my mum and my nan. And they said they looked in the mirror and thought, goodness me.
I know. I think it's that menopausal thing when suddenly things just change. And, for me, it was coming out of lockdown almost, where I was probably on the back end of menopause, and I just suddenly looked in the mirror and it was like, oh my God, what's happened to me?
Because I guess I mean, for me, I'm 35, I still feel like a 20-year-old or even an 18-year-old. Does that change as you get into sort of your...
Unfortunately not, right?
Well, it does change to a certain extent, but, I've always looked after myself, so I've always kept fit and looked after my skin, so, it did come as a bit of a shock. I mean, I know, obviously, ageing happens to us all, and we have to embrace that, but there's a certain amount that we have to put up with, and then, other things can step in.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's 9:42 now. A landmark legal case earlier this month revealed how millions of drivers could be owed compensation in a car finance mis-selling scandal.
This is the first I've heard of this one. It's interesting. It's estimated that almost 31.7 million car finance agreements made since 2007 involved a commission payment to a broker.
So, if you bought a car on a personal contract purchase, a PCP, or a hire purchase arrangement before January the 28th, 2021, excuse me, you could be due thousands in compensation.
To tell us more, because it is quite complicated, we're joined by Director of Sentinel Legal, Sam Ward. Sam, thank you very much for joining us today. Sam, can you just explain exactly what this means, what's going on? Because it hasn't had that much coverage, this story.
No, absolutely. And I think what people are struggling to get their head around is what's actually happened and how this is a problem to them. And if I talk you through the entire customer journey, you walk into a car dealership, you assume that dealer, that broker, that person selling you the car is earning their money through selling the car, and that's where the profit is. But what's actually transpired here, Dawn, is that when you're taking out the car on finance, meaning you're paying monthly for that car, you're actually being charged a huge commission in the thousands of pounds that you are not aware of, and the broker is actually incentivized by the lender to increase that commission.
Right, so we can see why under those circumstances it doesn't seem fair, because you don't realise quite what you're signing up for. But the problem with all of this is that how do we know if we've been hit by it, and how do you begin making a claim about it? Because that's where it gets very complicated.
Absolutely, and I think this is where the FCA has come out quite recently, as of this week, and said that of the 31 million finance agreements that have been issued since 2007, 99% of these agreements are affected by these undisclosed commissions that have been paid directly to the brokers. So I think it's fair to say that if you have taken a car out on finance from 2007 to 2021, you've probably got a good chance of having a compensation owed to yourself.
And this was quite common practice then, because I always assumed, probably naively, that, it was explained. If you're sitting in the car showroom signing the forms, they will say, yeah, OK, well, this is the loan we can give you and this is how much interest they're going to charge. But that clearly didn't happen.
Well, this is the issue, Dawn, and quite recently the Court of Appeal have done a landmark ruling on this, where they've deemed that saying that they may pay a commission hidden somewhere in the smallest of fine print in your contract is acting in, to quote the Court of Appeal, their own self-interest, greedy means. And what these car finance lenders are now doing, now that they've been caught taking advantage of the great British public once again, they're now trying to obscure justice, delay justice, and cover their tracks. But as the FCA have come out and made quite clear, 99% of 31 million contracts are affected.
Yeah, all right, but that brings us down to the nitty-gritty then, doesn't it? Because if someone bought a car on finance in 2007 and they got rid of it 10 years later or whatever, the chances of them having that paperwork are next to nil, but you're saying the chances of them being due money is almost 100%. So is the onus going to be on customers to try and chase this up, Or can it be ruled that actually all these finance companies need to get in touch with people to say, we owe you money?
It's a great question. The FCA have got very clear guidelines on record keeping and accurate record keeping for all of these lenders. What most people can do if they're struggling is most people have the same email that they had when they were in high school. I definitely do. And you can type in your car registration or type in the name, and usually you can find it coming up. You can go through your bank statements and find it, and that usually gives you the agreement number in order to make the claim. But it is not a prerequisite to filing a claim. Law firms, claims management companies can do what's called a data subject access request to the lender on your behalf, and we can get hold of all of the finance agreements that you've ever had with X amount of lenders.
So, Sam, very quickly, finally, if someone feels they've got the paperwork and they feel that this has happened to them, what's the very first thing they do?
I think the very first thing you can do at this moment in time is file your complaint, whether that's with legal representation such as Sentinel Legal or doing it yourself. Get the complaint in, get it being acknowledged by the lenders, and now you'll be in this waiting period that the FCA has set out, or we can look at potential litigious routes.
OK. Sam, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Wow. It's just finding all that detail.
It is the paperwork. That's a very good point.
Who did you get the loan from?
Yeah.
I'm thinking very selfishly.
Yeah, no.
I've had loans like that, but who with? What car? What was the reg?
Yeah, it's very few people keep records going back that far, and we are talking quite a way back now. People change their cars so quickly, don't they?
Best part of 20 years, 17 years.
But it's worth looking into.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
You could
really
get
is.
a couple of grand in your pocket. That's no small change, is it?
No, I'm so naive. I just assume when you're sitting there... I mean, because who reads all that small print?
Should do, I guess,
Yeah,
but
I know.
there's pages and pages of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, get in touch if you think you might be
Yes.
affected by that. We'd love to hear from
Yeah.
you. We're going to go through Saturday Morning Live and find out what's coming up with Ellie and Sam in just a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kaizen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Van.
Well,
Hi.
yeah,
Hi,
thank you for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise, and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. And the other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. And I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
9:51 now, our poll of the day, and each year between November and March, the Department of Work and Pensions runs a cold weather payment scheme to people claiming a qualifying benefit like pension credit, income support, universal credit. So, when the temperature drops below zero for 7 days, people can receive a £25 payment in their bank account.
However, with the loss of the winter fuel payments for many pensioners, today we are asking, should all pensioners be paid that £25 cold weather payment? We're bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned. The final result will be announced later in Nana Aqua's show.
Yeah, and if you want to take part, go to gbnews.com/poll. Now, it's Saturday Morning Live coming up at 10 o'clock.
The fresh young team.
Fresh young team, yeah.
Yes.
Ellie and Sam are here. Morning, you two.
Hello, you
We won't comment on your age. Just keep us fresh.
Please, Sam.
Well, Ellie's just had a birthday. She's positively ancient.
I am. Yeah, no, I'm into the 30s.
Yeah, it was this week, wasn't it?
It was this week.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
We were talking about the Cotswolds because is the Cotswolds the new LA? We've got lots of Americans who are seeking refuge in the United Kingdom after the result of the presidential election.
Is that where Ellen DeGeneres is?
It is where Ellen DeGeneres.
She's not the only one. James Corden's headed back as well.
James Corden's headed back. America Ferrera from Ugly Betty, that actress, she's also moved over. They're all loving the Cotswolds. Ellen DeGeneres was actually spotted in Jeremy Clarkson's pub. The farmer's dog, sat there with her wife.
I didn't see that.
So she's already there?
Ellen DeGeneres and
Well,
Clarkson.
no. I don't know how politically she's going to blend with the people in the Cotswolds. But, we're going to be talking about that when
She's officially moved. She's not on the move, she's already here. Wow, okay.
And one of her best friends is Meghan Markle. So will our Meghan be coming back as well?
Well, they've got a house in Portugal now, so maybe this was all right.
Perhaps not. We've also got a celebrity dog whisperer coming on, which is going to be quite interesting. And I'm going to hopefully try and get some advice, not just on how to whisper to your dogs, but how to sort out your co-host. Some top tips.
I was about to say, there's a fashion segment, which you could do.
No comment. We'll talk about that at the top of the show.
We actually got a fashion segment.
We actually do, Denim. How to style it for Christmas.
Yeah, but that's why Ellie's being brought into that. I mean, she's absolutely stunning in that dress. Really
Well,
gorgeous.
not double denim, though.
Never double denim.
Apparently it's black denim now.
Oh, black denim.
Black denim.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, and baggy denim.
Oh,
no,
it's like I'm back in my youth again when I see
But it's all coming back, comes back around.
There we go.
It's horrid.
Did they have denim in 1872?
Oh, go away. As I've said all morning, she's a very nasty lady. We'll see you two in a minute.
See you in a bit.
Here's the weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Storm Bert is affecting the UK this weekend. Expect some disruption. The Met Office have issued a number of yellow warnings, and there is an amber warning in place for snow and ice across parts of the north. Heavy snow moving in as the system tracks northwards, but also some very heavy rain following on behind. Blustery winds as well,